When Adrienne Cole watched her husband drive away with their housemaid on what should have been just another Tuesday, she thought she'd hit rock bottom. She was wrong. Within 6 hours, she'd lose her home, her job, and every cent in her bank account. Standing in the rain outside the courthouse, divorce papers dissolving in a puddle at her feet, she had two choices: disappear into nothing or accept help from the sharp-eyed stranger watching her fall apart. She chose the stranger. She chose Matteo Valenti, and that choice changed everything. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far Adrienne's story travels. The courthouse smelled like old wood and broken promises. Adrienne Cole sat on the bench outside courtroom 3B, her nursing scrubs wrinkled from a double shift she'd worked before coming here. Her hands shook as she held the manila folder containing 7 years of marriage, now reduced to 18 pages of legal jargon. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, cold and indifferent, just like the judge who'd signed off on her divorce 30 minutes ago. She should feel something. Anger, maybe. Relief. Something. Instead, she felt hollow. The courtroom door swung open and Ethan walked out, his hand firmly wrapped around Lila's waist. Lila, the 24-year-old housemaid Adrienne had hired 8 months ago because she'd felt sorry for the girl. Lila, who'd cried about her sick mother and student loans. Lila, who'd been sleeping in Adrienne's guest room and apparently also in Adrienne's bed whenever Adrienne worked night shifts. Ethan didn't even look at her. He was too busy whispering something in Lila's ear, making her giggle like they were teenagers instead of two people who'd just blown up someone's entire life. Lila wore the cashmere coat Adrienne had bought last Christmas, the one Ethan said was too expensive, the one she'd returned because he'd made her feel guilty for wanting something nice. Lila caught Adrienne staring and had the audacity to smile. Not a cruel smile exactly, worse. A pitying smile, the kind that said, "Sorry, you weren't enough." Adrienne's stomach turned. Adrienne, Ethan's voice. She'd once loved that voice, found comfort in it during her father's funeral, during the miscarriage that had nearly destroyed her 3 years ago. Now it just sounded tired, inconvenienced. "What?" Her voice came out flat. "The house keys." He held out his hand, palm up, like she was a valet. "The locks are being changed tomorrow, but I need them back now. And your garage remote. The house is in both our names." "Was," Ethan corrected. "Was in both our names. Check page 14 of the settlement. You signed it." She had. Her lawyer, the overpriced, underperforming lawyer she'd paid $3,000 she didn't have, had told her to sign. "Just sign it, Adrienne. You're not going to win this one. He's got better representation." Better representation. Better everything, apparently. "What about my things?" Adrienne asked. "My clothes, my books, my—" "Boxed up," Lila interrupted brightly, like she was being helpful. "I packed everything myself. It's all in the garage. You can pick it up tomorrow between 9 and noon. After that, we're donating whatever's left." I packed everything myself. This girl. This child who'd stolen her husband now had the nerve to pack up her life like she was doing her a favor. "Tomorrow I'm working," Adrienne said through clenched teeth. Ethan shrugged. "Then I guess you'll have to call in sick." "Not my problem anymore, Adrienne. You made your choices." "I made my—" She stopped, took a breath. "I worked 70-hour weeks to keep us afloat while you found yourself with 3 different failed businesses. I made my choices." "You were never home," Ethan said, and he actually sounded offended, like he believed it. "What was I supposed to do? Live like a monk while you prioritized everyone but me? I was keeping us from losing everything. You were avoiding me, avoiding us, avoiding dealing with the fact that our marriage was dead." He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that for a second she almost believed him, almost believed this was somehow her fault for not noticing that her husband was sleeping with their housemaid. "We're done here." Ethan took the keys she didn't remember handing him. "Come on, baby. We've got dinner reservations." Baby. He'd called Lila baby. Adrienne watched them walk away, Ethan's hand sliding into Lila's back pocket like he owned her, like possession was love. They disappeared around the corner, and she heard Lila's laughter echo down the marble hallway, bright and carefree and so goddamn young. The folder slipped from Adrienne's hands. Papers scattered across the courthouse steps as she walked outside into the February cold. Rain had started falling, that miserable half-frozen Seattle drizzle that soaked through everything. She'd parked 3 blocks away because courthouse parking was $40, and she was trying to save money for a security deposit on whatever shoebox apartment would take someone with her newly destroyed credit score. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. HR. Need to see you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Important. Great. Perfect. Because this day wasn't complete without whatever fresh hell that meant. The rain picked up. Within minutes, she was soaked through, her scrubs clinging to her skin, her hair plastered to her face. She looked down and saw the divorce papers dissolving in a puddle, Ethan's signature bleeding into nothing. 7 years. Gone. Just like that. Her knees buckled. She didn't fall. She wasn't giving this city the satisfaction, but she stopped walking, just stopped, right there on 4th Avenue, while the city moved around her, businessmen with umbrellas, teenagers laughing, a homeless man asking for change, everyone going somewhere, everyone mattering to someone. She didn't even have a somewhere to go. The apartment she'd been staying at belonged to her friend Rachel, who'd been patient, but whose patience had limits. You can crash here for a bit, but Marcus and I are trying to start a family, and we really need the space back. Translation: leave. Her mother was dead. Her father was dead. Her brother lived in Portland with a wife who'd made it clear Adrienne wasn't welcome after that one Thanksgiving when Adrienne had gotten drunk and told the truth about what a saint her brother actually wasn't. No home, no family, and tomorrow, probably no job, if that text meant what she thought it meant. Excuse me. The voice came from behind her, male, deep, controlled. She didn't turn around. Not interested, not buying anything, not joining anything. Not, you're standing in the middle of the sidewalk, in the rain, without a coat. Observant. She still didn't turn. Gold star for you. You're also shaking. She was. She hadn't noticed, but he was right. Her whole body was trembling, teeth chattering, hands numb. I'm fine, she lied. You're not. Something in his voice made her turn. Not kindness exactly, just certainty. Like he'd seen enough people who weren't fine to recognize the signs. The man standing behind her looked like he'd walked out of a different world. Expensive charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, dark hair, touched with gray at the temples, sharp jaw, sharper eyes, the kind of dark eyes that missed nothing. He held an umbrella, black and huge, and he wasn't offering to share it. He was just standing there, studying her like she was a puzzle. Do I know you? Adrienne asked. No. Then why are you talking to me? Because you look like you're about to do something stupid. She laughed. Actually laughed. This broken sound that hurt coming out. Too late. Already did. Married the wrong person. That's stupid enough for you? His expression didn't change. I was thinking more along the lines of walking into traffic. I'm not suicidal. Good. He tilted his head slightly. Just divorced? She glanced down at the soggy papers in the puddle. What gave it away? The look. He said it like that explained everything. What look? The one that says you've just realized the person you built your life around was never actually there. He stepped closer, finally angling the umbrella to cover both of them. You're not the first person to stand on this street looking like that. You won't be the last. Adrienne stared at him. You make a habit of bothering devastated women outside courthouses? No, he said simply. But my car is parked right there, and you're blocking the sidewalk. I could drive around you, or you could move, or... He paused. You could get out of the rain before you freeze to death and let me buy you coffee. I don't know you. Correct. You could be a serial killer. I could be. But serial killers usually have better timing than 4:30 on a Tuesday. He said it so deadpan she almost smiled. Coffee, 1 hour, public place. You can leave whenever you want. Why? The question seemed to catch him off guard. His jaw tightened slightly, the only crack in that controlled facade. Because someone did it for me once, he said quietly. And I'm returning the favor. Adrienne looked at him, really looked at him. This stranger with his expensive suit and his careful eyes and his ridiculous offer. She should say no. She should walk away. She should do literally anything except get in a car with a man she didn't know. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It makes you reckless. 1 hour, she heard herself say, and I'm buying my own coffee. Fair enough. His car was a black Mercedes, sleek and spotless, the kind of car that cost more than she'd made in 3 years of nursing. He opened the passenger door without a word, and she slid in, immediately ruining his leather seats with her soaked scrubs. Sorry, she muttered. It's a car. It'll dry. He started the engine and warm air flooded the interior. There's a cafe 3 blocks from here, quiet. Good coffee. No one will bother you. You seem very certain of that. I own it. Of course he did. They drove in silence, rain drumming against the windshield. Adrienne watched the city blur past, wondering what the hell she was doing. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was Matteo Valenti, the man said, breaking the silence. He didn't offer his hand, just his name, since you're probably wondering. Adrienne Cole, she hesitated. Well, still Cole for now, legally, for another 30 days. And after 30 days? Hell if I know. Maybe I'll go back to my maiden name. Maybe I'll pick something completely random. Smith, Jones, something forgettable. You don't strike me as forgettable. She turned to look at him. He kept his eyes on the road, expression unreadable. You don't know me, she said. No, he agreed, but I know that look. The one you're wearing, I wore it myself once. What look? Like you're trying to decide if you're angry or relieved. Adrienne's throat tightened. Both, she whispered. I'm both. He nodded, like that made perfect sense. The cafe was small and tucked between 2 larger buildings, easy to miss if you didn't know it was there. Inside it was warm and smelled like espresso and vanilla. Only 3 other customers, all absorbed in their laptops. A young barista looked up when they entered, started to smile at Matteo, then caught the expression on his face and immediately looked away. What do you want? Matteo asked. Drip coffee, black. You sure? They make a good latte here. I'm sure. He ordered 2 black coffees, paid, and led her to a corner table by the window. Adrienne sat, still shivering despite the warmth, and watched him settle across from her. He moved with this economy of motion, nothing wasted, like someone used to being watched. You're staring, he said, without looking up from his coffee. You offered to buy coffee for a stranger. That's weird. Is it? Yes. Normal people don't do that. His mouth almost curved into a smile. Almost. Who said I was normal? Fair point. Adrienne wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, letting the heat seep into her frozen fingers. So, what's your deal, Matteo Valenti? Rich guy with a savior complex? No. Then what? He took a long sip of his coffee, considering. I told you. Someone helped me once. I'm paying it forward. When? 8 years ago. Paris. I just lost everything that mattered. His voice stayed level, but something flickered behind his eyes. Old pain, carefully locked away. Found myself standing on Pont Neuf at 3 in the morning, wondering if jumping would hurt less than living. An old woman, had to be 80, walked up to me. Didn't say a word, just handed me a thermos of coffee and a card for a hotel, told me to sleep before I made any decisions. Did you? Sleep? For 16 hours. Woke up and the world hadn't ended. He met her eyes. Still hurt like hell, but I was alive, and I decided that was enough to work with. Adrienne's chest ached. What happened? To the old woman? Never saw her again. Tried to find her, but he shrugged. Some people are meant to appear once, leave their mark, disappear. And now you're being that person for me. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of watching people drown when throwing them a rope costs nothing. He leaned back in his chair. Tell me what happened, if you want. She shouldn't. She didn't know this man. But something about the way he said it, no judgment, no expectations, just an offer, made her talk. So she did. She told him about Ethan, about the 7 years she'd spent trying to be enough, working doubles to cover his failed businesses, smiling through family dinners where his mother reminded her she still didn't have children, pretending not to notice when he stopped touching her. About Lila, who'd seemed so sweet, so grateful for the job. About coming home early from a shift last month and finding them in her bed. He cried, Adrienne said, staring at her coffee. Ethan, when I found them, he cried and said it was a mistake. Said it meant nothing. Begged me not to leave. She laughed bitterly. Guess it meant something after all, since he married her. Mateo's expression darkened. He what? They're getting married, tomorrow actually, some restaurant in Belltown. Lila was showing everyone the venue photos in the courthouse bathroom. $600 a plate, which is hilarious since I paid for his bankruptcy lawyer 2 years ago. What restaurant? I don't know, something Italian. Starts with a V, I think. She rubbed her temples. Why? Mateo's jaw clenched. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. An elegant website with cursive script. Valentino's. This one? Her stomach dropped. Yeah, how did you... I own it. The world tilted slightly. You own the restaurant where my ex-husband is marrying the girl he cheated on me with. Apparently. That's unlikely, he finished, but not impossible. Seattle's smaller than people think, especially certain circles. Adrienne started laughing. She couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream, and she'd screamed enough for one day. This is insane. This whole day is insane. Yes, I should go. She started to stand. Thank you for the coffee, but I've clearly stumbled into some kind of cosmic joke, and I don't... Sit down, Adrienne. She did, more out of surprise than obedience. His voice had changed, still controlled, but with steel underneath. What if I told you, Mateo said slowly, that you didn't have to just walk away? What if there was another option? Like what? Like showing up tomorrow, to the wedding. Her heart started pounding. Absolutely not. Why not? Because that's insane. Because I have nothing to say to either of them. Because you're afraid. He said it gently, but it landed like a slap. I'm not afraid of Ethan. I didn't say you were afraid of him. I said you're afraid. He leaned forward. You're afraid that if you face them, if you walk into that restaurant, you'll fall apart. You'll prove that he was right to leave, that you weren't enough. Stop. You're afraid that even now, even after everything, you're still invisible. Still the woman who worked herself to death and got nothing back. Still, stop. Adrienne's hand slammed on the table. Her coffee sloshed over the rim. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. Then prove me wrong. His eyes locked onto hers, dark and intense. Show up tomorrow. Not as the broken wife. Not as the woman who lost. As someone who can stand in front of what almost destroyed her and not flinch. And what? Make a scene? Throw a drink in his face? Tell everyone what a piece of shit he is? If you want. Or you could do something better. What's better than that? Mateo smiled then, really smiled, and it transformed his entire face, made him look almost dangerous. You could let him see that you're fine, but better than fine, that leaving you was the biggest mistake of his life. But I'm not fine, I'm a mess. I just lost my home, probably my job, and I'm wearing scrubs that smell like hospital and rain. That, Mateo said, can be fixed. She stared at him. You're serious? Completely. Why? Why do you even care? His smile faded. Because I was married once too. And when she left, when she took everything, I let her. I disappeared. I rebuilt in silence. And I've regretted it every day since, because she never had to face what she did, never had to see that I survived her. He paused. I'm offering you something I never gave myself. A choice. Adrienne's mind raced. This was crazy. This was a stranger proposing something that could blow up in her face spectacularly. But underneath the fear, underneath the exhaustion, something else stirred. Anger. Not the hot screaming kind, the cold kind. The kind that had been building for months, maybe years, while she'd smiled and worked and pretended everything was fine. What exactly are you proposing? She asked carefully. Come with me tomorrow, to the wedding, as my guest. Your guest? Yes. And do what? Just show up? Show up looking like you've already moved on, looking like the last person he should have underestimated. Mateo's voice dropped. Looking untouchable. Adrienne's pulse hammered in her throat. I can't afford. You're not paying for anything. This is my offer, my investment, if you want to call it that. Investment in what? In watching an unfaithful husband realize he's made a catastrophic error in judgment. He shrugged. Call it entertainment. Call it karma. Call it whatever you want. But if you say yes, I guarantee you'll walk out of that restaurant tomorrow with your head high. It was insane. It was also the first thing that had made sense all day. One condition, Adrienne said. Name it. If I do this, if I walk in there tomorrow, you tell me the real reason you're helping me. Not the paying it forward story. The real reason. Matteo was quiet for a long moment. Then, the woman I married? She didn't just leave. She destroyed me. Took our company, our reputation, turned everyone we knew against me. And she did it all while sleeping with my business partner. His voice stayed even, but his hands tightened around his coffee cup. I spent 3 years rebuilding everything she burned down. And when I finally had the chance to face her, to show her that she hadn't broken me, I walked away. I chose silence. I chose to be the bigger person. And it was the wrong choice, because she still gets to believe she won, that she broke me and I never recovered. And I hate that. I hate that she has that. He met Adrienne's eyes. So maybe I'm not doing this for you. Maybe I'm doing it for both of us. Maybe I want to see what happens when someone actually stands their ground. The honesty of it cut through everything else. No pretty words, no false comfort, just truth, raw and ugly and real. Adrienne took a breath. Okay. Okay? Okay, I'll do it. I'll go to the wedding. The words felt impossible, even as she said them. But if this goes sideways, it won't. You can't know that. No, Matteo agreed. But I can control everything else. The dress, the arrival, the exit strategy. All you have to do is show up and let them see you. That's all? That's everything. Adrienne looked out the window at the rain-soaked street, at the people hurrying past with their umbrellas and their normal problems. Somewhere out there, Ethan was probably having dinner with Lila, planning their perfect day, secure in the knowledge that Adrienne would disappear quietly, like she always did. Not this time. What do I need to do? She asked. Matteo pulled out his phone, typed something, then slid it across the table. A calendar appointment. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Be at this address. Someone will handle everything. Hair, makeup, dress. We'll arrive at the restaurant at 6:15. Ceremony starts at 6:30. We walk in fashionably late, stay exactly long enough to be seen, then leave. Whole thing takes maybe 45 minutes. That's it? That's it. Unless you want to say something to him. Did she? Adrienne tried to imagine facing Ethan, seeing Lila in a wedding dress, standing in front of everyone who'd watched her marriage collapse. A month ago, the thought would have destroyed her. Even yesterday, it would have felt impossible. But right now, soaked and shivering and completely out of options, she felt something shifting inside her, some long-dormant part of herself waking up. I don't need to say anything, she said quietly. I just need him to see me. Then that's what we'll do. Matteo stood, leaving cash on the table for the coffee. Come on, I'll drive you wherever you're staying. That's not... You don't have to... Adrienne. He waited until she looked at him. Let someone help you, just this once. So she did. They drove through rain-slicked streets to Rachel's apartment building in Fremont. Matteo didn't ask questions, didn't make small talk, just pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. 3 p.m. tomorrow, he said. Don't overthink it. Just show up. And if I change my mind, then don't show up. The choice is yours. It always was. Adrienne reached for the door handle, then stopped. Matteo, thank you for the coffee, for everything. Thank you for saying yes. He said it simply, like she'd done him the favor instead of the other way around. She got out of the car, walked into the building, and stood in the elevator watching the numbers climb. By the time she reached the 4th floor, Matteo's Mercedes was gone. Rachel was watching TV when Adrienne walked in, still dripping. She took one look at Adrienne's face and hit pause. That bad? Worse. Adrienne peeled off her soaked scrubs. Also possibly better. I can't tell yet. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Adrienne headed for the bathroom. But tomorrow I need to borrow your curling iron, and your confidence, and maybe your miracle-working concealer. Hot date? Adrian laughed, this strange sound that felt almost genuine. Something like that. She took the hottest shower she could stand, letting the water beat against her shoulders until the shaking finally stopped. When she got out, there was a text from a number she didn't recognize. Unknown. Address for tomorrow, 2847 Western Avenue, Suite 401. Ask for Daniela. Everything's handled. M. Another text followed immediately. Unknown. And Adrienne, get some sleep. You're going to need it. She should have been terrified, should have questioned every decision that led to this moment. Instead, she set her alarm for 2 p.m., climbed into Rachel's guest bed, and slept harder than she had in months. When she woke the next morning, there was another text waiting, HR, meeting rescheduled to Friday, 8 a.m. Apologies for short notice. Small miracle. Tiny one. But enough. Adrienne spent the day trying not to think about what she'd agreed to. She cleaned Rachel's bathroom, did laundry, meal prepped chicken and rice for the next week. Normal things. Grounding things. Things that didn't involve walking into her ex-husband's wedding with a stranger who'd materialized out of the rain like some kind of designer-suited guardian angel. At 2:30, she gave up pretending she wasn't nervous. At 2:45, she put on jeans and Rachel's nicest sweater. At 2:50, she stood outside 2847 Western Avenue, staring up at a sleek building that probably cost more per square foot than most people made in a year. Her phone buzzed. Mateo, 4th floor. Daniela's expecting you. Don't run. How did he know she was thinking about running? Adrienne took a breath and went inside. The elevator was all glass and chrome, rising with the kind of smooth silence that meant money. The 4th floor opened into a hallway with exactly one door, Suite 401. She knocked. The woman who answered looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tall, impossibly chic, with sharp black hair and sharper eyeliner. She looked Adrienne up and down once, nodded like she'd confirmed something, and stepped aside. Adrienne, come in. We have exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes, and you're going to need every second. I'm sorry, I don't... Daniela Cruz. I style people for a living. Mateo called in a favor. You're the favor. She gestured to a chair in front of a mirror surrounded by professional lighting. Sit. Talk. Tell me everything about the man you're about to make regret his entire existence. And just like that, Adrienne started laughing. Really laughing. For the first time in months. Maybe even years. This was happening. This was really happening. His name is Ethan, she said, sitting down. And he has no idea what's about to hit him. Daniela's smile was sharp as glass. Perfect. Let's make sure it hits hard. 2 hours turned out to be barely enough time. Daniela worked with the focused intensity of a surgeon, her hands moving through Adrienne's hair while she fired questions like bullets. What did Ethan like? What did he hate? What would make him remember exactly what he'd thrown away? He always said I was too plain, Adrienne found herself saying as Daniela sectioned her hair with clips. Too practical. Said I never made an effort. Translation, he wanted you small. Daniela's reflection met hers in the mirror. Men like that need their women diminished. Makes them feel bigger. She picked up a curling iron. We're going to make you impossible to diminish. The transformation happened in stages. First the hair. Daniela didn't just curl it. She sculpted it into something that looked effortless, but probably cost $300 in a salon. Loose waves that caught the light, framing Adrienne's face in a way that made her cheekbones look sharp enough to cut. Then the makeup. Daniela's assistant appeared, a quiet girl named Mia, who treated Adrienne's face like a canvas, foundation that evened out the exhaustion, concealer that erased the evidence of crying herself to sleep for 3 weeks straight, eyeshadow in shades of bronze and gold that made her green eyes look almost startling. Don't touch your face, Mia warned as she applied lipstick. This stuff costs more than my rent, and it's specifically designed to survive everything short of a nuclear explosion. What about a nervous breakdown? Mia smiled. Tested for that too. At 4:30, Daniela disappeared into a back room and returned with a garment bag. She unzipped it with theatrical slowness, and Adrienne's breath caught. The dress was midnight blue, almost black in certain light. Simple cut? Nothing flashy, just clean lines that somehow made it more devastating. The kind of dress that didn't scream for attention because it didn't have to. I can't afford this, Adrian said immediately. You're not buying it. Matteo is. Daniela held it up. And before you get all proud and stubborn, consider this. Rich men spend money on cars and watches and other pointless shit all the time. Let them spend it on something useful, like revenge. This isn't revenge. Isn't it? Daniela's eyebrow arched. Then what is it? Adrienne didn't have an answer for that. The dress fit like it had been made for her body specifically. Daniela had somehow known her exact measurements, which was either impressive or mildly terrifying. It hugged in all the right places without being obvious about it, ended just above her knees, made her legs look longer than they actually were. Shoes, Daniela announced, producing a box. Black heels, simple and elegant, 4 inches that Adrienne hadn't worn since her own wedding. I'm going to fall. You're not. I checked your Instagram. You used to wear heels all the time. That was 7 years ago. It's like riding a bike, except the bike costs $1,200 and will make your ex-husband's new wife look like she shops at a clearance rack. Daniela knelt, helping Adrienne into the shoes. How do they feel? Adrienne took a few experimental steps. Her ankles wobbled for a second, then remembered what to do. Like I'm about to do something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Best decisions always feel like both. By 5:45, Adrienne didn't recognize herself. The woman in the mirror looked confident, put together, like someone who'd never stood sobbing in the rain outside a courthouse, like someone who belonged in expensive restaurants with men who drove Mercedes and owned half of Seattle. One last thing, Daniela said, fastening a delicate silver bracelet around Adrienne's wrist. From Matteo. He said to tell you it belonged to his mother. You're borrowing it, not keeping it, so don't lose it or he'll have both our heads. The bracelet was simple but clearly old, worn smooth by decades of wear. Adrienne touched it gently, feeling the weight of someone else's history. Why would he? Because it makes you look like you belong to something bigger than your small-town ex-husband's tiny world. That's the game, Adrienne. You're not just showing up. You're showing up looking like you've already moved on to something he could never touch. Daniela stepped back, examining her work. And honey, you look untouchable. A knock at the door made Adrienne's heart jump. Daniela checked her phone. Right on time. That'll be your ride. She walked over, opened the door, and stepped aside. Matteo stood in the hallway looking like he'd walked straight out of a different tax bracket. Dark suit, perfectly fitted. White shirt, no tie. Hair styled just enough to look like he hadn't tried. He took one look at Adrienne and went completely still. Say something, Daniela prompted. You look... Matteo seemed to be searching for words, which was apparently unusual enough that Daniela smiled. You look ready. That's it? That's all you've got? Daniela shook her head. Men. I work miracles and get you look ready. You did good work, Matteo said, still looking at Adrienne, as always. Something passed between them, some shared understanding that Adrienne wasn't part of. Then Daniela clapped her hands together. Out, both of you. I have a client in 20 minutes who thinks she can wear yellow, and I need to prepare myself emotionally for that conversation. She handed Adrienne a small clutch that matched the dress. Phone, lipstick, breath mints. Everything else you need is already in there. Thank you, Adrienne managed. Don't thank me. Just walk in there like you own the place. And if you see that ex of yours, don't say a word. Make him come to you. Make him work for even a second of your attention. Daniela's smile turned sharp. Trust me, it'll kill him. The elevator ride down was silent. Adrienne could feel Matteo watching her, but she kept her eyes on the descending numbers. 4, 3, 2, 1. Ground floor. The Mercedes was waiting at the curb, passenger door already open. Matteo gestured for her to get in, and she did, careful with the dress, hyper-aware of every movement. He slid into the driver's seat and pulled into traffic without a word. You nervous? He asked after 3 blocks. Terrified. Good. Use it. Adrienne looked at him. How exactly do I use terror? Channel it, turn it into something else. Anger, determination, ice. He switched lanes smoothly. People think confidence is the absence of fear. It's not. It's being afraid and moving forward anyway. You sound like a self-help book. I sound like someone who's been exactly where you are. His jaw tightened slightly. The night I told you about, Paris. When I stood on that bridge, I wasn't just afraid. I was completely certain I'd lost everything that mattered, that there was no coming back from it. But you did come back. Eventually. Took 3 years, 2 failed businesses, and more therapy than I care to admit. But yeah, I came back. He glanced at her. You will too. This is just the first step. They pulled up to Valentino's at 617. The restaurant occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse in Belltown, all exposed brick and industrial windows. Even from outside, Adrienne could see the glow of candlelight, the sparkle of champagne glasses, the movement of people who belonged in places like this. Her stomach turned over. I can't do this. Yes, you can. Matteo, look at me. He waited until she did. You've already survived the worst part. The betrayal, the divorce, the loss. This is just theater, and you're going to walk in there and give the performance of your life. And if I freeze, then I'll handle it. That's why I'm here. He got out, walked around to her door, and offered his hand. Ready? No, not even close. But Adrienne took his hand anyway and let him pull her to her feet. The heels made her eye level with his shoulder. She wobbled slightly, and his hand moved to her waist, steadying her. Breathe, he said quietly. She did. Once. Twice. 3 times. Okay, she whispered. Okay. They walked toward the entrance, Matteo's hand still at the small of her back. The doorman, a young guy in a crisp uniform, saw Matteo and immediately straightened. Mr. Valenti, good evening, sir. Evening, Marcus. We're here for the Cole wedding. Marcus checked his tablet, frowned slightly. I don't see you on the list, sir. I don't need to be on the list, Marcus. I own the building. Of course, my apologies. Marcus opened the door, holding it wide. Enjoy your evening. Inside, the restaurant was even more beautiful. Candlelight everywhere, flowers dripping from every surface, a string quartet playing something classical and expensive sounding in the corner. At least 80 people milled around with champagne flutes, dressed in cocktail attire that probably cost more than Adrienne's nursing salary. And there, in the center of it all, stood Ethan and Lila. Lila wore white, of course she did, a lacy dress that made her look even younger than 24. She was laughing at something, her hand on Ethan's chest, completely unaware that anything in her perfect world was about to shift. Ethan looked happy, relaxed, like a man who'd traded in an old model for something shiny and new and didn't feel even a flicker of guilt about it. Adrienne's hands started to shake. Steady, Matteo murmured. You're not here for him. You're here for you. A server appeared with champagne. Matteo took 2 glasses, handed one to Adrienne. Sip it. Don't drink it. Just hold it so your hands have something to do. She took the glass, gripped it like a lifeline. They moved deeper into the room, and Adrienne felt the exact moment people started noticing them. Heads turned, conversations paused. There was a ripple effect, attention shifting from the bride and groom to the striking couple who'd just walked in. More specifically, to Matteo. You're staring at him like he's famous, Adrienne whispered. In certain circles, I am. Matteo's voice stayed neutral. I prefer it that way. Keeps people honest. What do you do, actually? I invest in things. Sometimes they work out, often they don't. When they do, I make money. When they don't, I make enemies. He guided her toward the edge of the room, away from the crowd. But that's boring. Let's talk about you. Me. You. What do you want out of tonight, really? Adrienne thought about it. What did she want? To scream at Ethan? To tell everyone what he'd done? To make Lila cry the way Adrienne had cried? No. I want him to see me, she said slowly, and I want him to realize I'm fine without him. Better, even. Then that's what we'll do. Matteo's eyes scanned the room. He's looking this way. Don't look back. Not yet. Let him wonder. It was agony, not turning. Adrienne felt Ethan's gaze like a physical weight, but she forced herself to focus on Matteo, on the champagne glass in her hand, on anything except the burning need to see Ethan's reaction. How do you know he's looking? She asked. Because every man in this room is looking. At you. And the ones who aren't are looking at me, trying to figure out who I am and why I'm here. Matteo's mouth curved slightly. Your ex-husband is currently having what looks like an interesting conversation with his bride. She keeps glancing over here. He keeps telling her something. She doesn't look happy about it. Good. There she is. Mateo's voice held approval. There's the woman who agreed to do this. A hand touched Adrienne's shoulder, and she nearly jumped out of her skin. She turned to find a woman she vaguely recognized. One of Ethan's cousins, maybe? Ashley? Amanda? Adrienne? The woman's eyes were wide. Oh my God, it is you. I didn't recognize you at first. Wow, you look amazing. Thank you, Adrienne managed. I didn't know you were coming. Ethan didn't mention. The woman's gaze slid to Mateo, and her whole demeanor changed, straightened, smiled wider. Hi, I'm Amber, Ethan's cousin, Mateo Valenti. He shook her hand politely, nothing more. Are you two? Amber's eyes bounced between them, hungry for gossip. Together? Yes. Mateo said it so smoothly, so casually, that for a second even Adrienne almost believed it. Adrienne's told me so much about the family. Good to finally put faces to names. Amber looked like she'd just won the lottery. I have to tell everyone, not in a gossipy way, just, oh, this is so unexpected, in a good way. Ethan will be so surprised. She hurried off before either of them could respond. Well, Adrienne said weakly, that happened fast. It always does. Give it 3 minutes and everyone here will know you showed up with someone. Mateo checked his watch. 2 minutes until they're supposed to start the ceremony. Want to sit? Or, Adrienne, Ethan's voice right behind her. Adrienne turned slowly, channeling every ounce of Daniela's advice. Don't rush, don't react, make him come to you. Ethan stood 3 feet away, Lila attached to his arm like a barnacle. Up close, he looked older than Adrienne remembered, tired around the eyes. Or maybe that was just wishful thinking. Ethan, she said calmly. Congratulations. He blinked, clearly thrown by her tone. I didn't know you were coming. Last-minute decision. You look... He seemed to realize Lila was watching and course-corrected. Different. You look different. Do I? Adrienne sipped her champagne, letting the question hang. Lila's grip on Ethan's arm tightened. We're so glad you could make it, Adrienne. It means a lot. To both of us. Her voice dripped with false sweetness. And who's your friend? Mateo Valenti. Mateo extended his hand to Ethan, not Lila. A deliberate slight that made Lila's smile freeze. You must be the groom. Ethan Cole. They shook hands, and Adrienne saw Ethan wince slightly. Mateo's grip was apparently stronger than it looked. I don't think we've met. No, I tend to avoid wedding circuits. Mateo's voice stayed pleasant, but something underneath it made the words feel dangerous. Beautiful venue, though. Adrienne mentioned you'd chosen Valentino's. Excellent taste. Thanks. It took us months to get a reservation here. The waiting list is insane. Ethan puffed up slightly, proud of himself. But Lila's father knows someone, so we got bumped to the front. How fortunate. Mateo's expression didn't change. I'm sure that someone was very accommodating. He was. Said it was his pleasure. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was trying to place Mateo and failing. What do you do, Mateo? I invest. In what? Real estate, mostly. Restaurants, hotels, anything with good bones and bad management. He said it so casually, but Adrienne saw the exact moment understanding hit Ethan's face. Wait, are you saying you own this restaurant? Yes, among other things. Mateo smiled, showing teeth. But don't worry, you're not getting special treatment. Everyone pays the same price for the venue rental. $6,000 for the evening, wasn't it? Ethan's face went white, then red. You own Valentino's. I do. And you're here, with my ex-wife, at my wedding. Technically, I'm here with Adrienne. Your wedding is just the backdrop. Mateo's hand moved to the small of Adrienne's back again, possessive and unmistakable. Small world, isn't it? Lila looked between them, finally catching up. Wait, so you two... How long have you... When did this... Does it matter? Adrienne heard herself say. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. We're here now? And we're happy? That's what matters, right? That people are happy? The words landed like grenades. Ethan's jaw clenched. Can I talk to you? Alone? No, Matteo said before Adrienne could respond. I wasn't talking to you. I don't care. The answer is still no. Matteo's voice stayed level, but the steel underneath it was unmistakable. Anything you need to say to Adrienne, you can say in front of me. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, Adrienne corrected. As of yesterday, legally. Adrienne, please. Ethan actually looked desperate. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Why? The word came out sharper than she intended. What could you possibly have to say to me that you haven't already said? I didn't. He glanced at Lila, lowered his voice. I didn't expect you to move on this fast. Adrienne almost laughed. Move on? Ethan, you married the woman you cheated on me with exactly 1 day after our divorce was finalized. You don't get to judge my timeline. It's not the same. You're right, it's not. Because I'm not building my happiness on someone else's pain. Lila made a small sound. Hurt or anger. Adrienne couldn't tell. We didn't mean to hurt you, Adrienne. It just happened. It just happened, Adrienne repeated. You just happened to sleep in my bed, wear my clothes, take my husband. All just happened. That's not fair. Fair? Now Adrienne did laugh. You want to talk about fair? You want to talk about coming home early from a 16-hour shift and finding my husband in bed with the girl I hired because I felt sorry for her? That fair? People were staring now. The whole room had gone quiet, the string quartet trailing off mid-song. Matteo's hand pressed gently against Adrienne's back. A warning. A reminder. She took a breath, forced the anger back down. Enjoy your wedding, she said quietly. I hope it lasts longer than mine did. She turned to walk away, and Ethan grabbed her arm. Don't touch her. Matteo's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Ethan's hand dropped immediately. I need to understand. Who is this guy, Adrienne? Really? Did you even know him when we were together? No? Then how does it matter? Adrienne met his eyes. Would it change anything? Would it give you back the moral high ground you're so desperately trying to claim? I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. And you know what? I'm grateful. Because if you hadn't, I'd still be married to someone who was never really there. I'd still be working myself to death for someone who didn't even see me. She smiled, and it felt almost genuine. So thank you, Ethan, for being exactly who you are. It made leaving so much easier. She walked away before he could respond, Matteo matching her pace. They made it to the restaurant's outdoor terrace, empty except for a few smokers, before her legs started shaking. I need to sit. Matteo guided her to a bench, stayed standing while she collapsed onto it. I can't believe I just did that, Adrienne whispered. You were perfect. I almost lost it. I almost screamed at her. But you didn't. You stayed in control. That's what matters. Adrienne looked up at him. Did you see his face? I did. He looked devastated. Good. Matteo's expression was unreadable. Let him be devastated. Let him wonder if he made a mistake. Let him spend his whole wedding night thinking about the woman who got away. That's cruel. That's justice. Adrienne wasn't sure she believed him, but she didn't have the energy to argue. Her whole body felt like it was vibrating, adrenaline crashing through her system with nowhere to go. I think I need to leave, she said. I can't go back in there. Then we won't. Come on. Matteo offered his hand. Let's get out of here. They left through the back exit, avoiding the main dining room entirely. The Mercedes was still parked out front, and Matteo helped her into the passenger seat before sliding behind the wheel. Where do you want to go? He asked. Adrienne had no idea. Rachel's apartment felt wrong, too small for everything she was feeling. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can breathe. Matteo pulled into traffic without another word. They drove for 20 minutes in silence, Seattle's lights blurring past the windows. Finally, Matteo turned into a parking garage beneath a building that looked expensive even from the outside. Glass and steel and angles that didn't make sense until you looked at them from the right perspective. Where are we? Adrienne asked. My place. Don't panic, he added when she tensed. Penthouse has a balcony with a view of the Sound. Figured you could use some air that isn't recycled through a restaurant's HVAC system. He was right. She could. The elevator rose to the 20th floor, opened directly into Mateo's apartment. An apartment was the wrong word. This was a different universe. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture that looked uncomfortable but probably cost more than a car. Art on the walls that Adrienne didn't recognize but assumed was important. Balconies through there. Mateo pointed to sliding glass doors. I'll get you some water, or something stronger if you want it. Water's fine. Adrienne walked outside and immediately understood why he'd brought her here. The view was staggering. Puget Sound stretched out dark and infinite, the Olympic Mountains silhouetted against the last light of sunset, ferries cutting white lines through black water. She stood at the railing and finally let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The anger, the satisfaction, the terror. The strange, unexpected triumph of watching Ethan realize she was fine without him. She wasn't crying. That surprised her. She thought she'd cry. Instead, she just felt empty, cleaned out, like something that had been festering inside her for months had finally been lanced. Here! Mateo appeared beside her with 2 glasses of water. He set one on the railing in front of her and took a long drink from his own, staring out at the water. Thank you, Adrienne said after a while. For what? For tonight. For the dress and the confidence and the escape route. For standing there while I told off my ex-husband at his own wedding. You didn't tell him off. You were remarkably civil, all things considered. Mateo's mouth curved slightly. I was half expecting you to throw the champagne in his face. Daniela's makeup was too expensive to waste on a dramatic gesture. That made him laugh. A real laugh, not the controlled one she'd heard before. It changed his whole face, made him look younger. You did good tonight, he said. Better than good. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. I just made it easier. He turned to face her fully. You want to know what I saw when I watched you walk up to your ex-husband? What? Someone who'd already won. Before you even opened your mouth. Before he saw you with me. Before any of it. You'd already won because you showed up. Because you didn't let him make you disappear. His eyes searched hers. That takes more strength than most people have. Adrienne's throat tightened. I don't feel strong. No one does. That's the secret. Everyone's just pretending until the pretending becomes real. They stood there in silence, watching the lights on the water. Somewhere below, the city kept moving. People living their lives, making their choices, breaking and healing and breaking again. Can I ask you something? Adrienne said. Yes. The woman who destroyed you, your ex-wife. Do you still think about her? Mateo was quiet for a long time. Every day, he finally said. Not in the way I used to, not with the pain, but she changed me, changed how I trust people, how I build my life. You don't come back from that kind of betrayal completely whole. The cracks stay with you. Do you regret it, the marriage? No, because it taught me what I don't want. And sometimes that's more valuable than knowing what you do want. What don't you want? His jaw tightened. Someone who only loves me for what I can give them. Someone who sees me as a stepping stone to something better. Someone who'll smile to my face while tearing me apart behind my back. That's specific. That's experience. He drained his water glass. But enough about my damage. What about you? What's next? I have no idea. I'm probably losing my job. I definitely lost my apartment. My credit's destroyed, my savings are gone, and I'm 32 years old starting from zero. She laughed, this hollow sound. But hey, at least I have a great story about how I crashed my ex-husband's wedding with a mysterious billionaire. I'm not a billionaire. Millionaire? Closer. He didn't elaborate. And you're not losing your job. How do you know? Because I made some calls this afternoon. You're a good nurse, Adrienne, one of the best in your unit. The only reason you're being called into HR is because hospital administration wants to offer you a promotion. Night shift supervisor. More money, better hours, your own office. Adrienne stared at him. You, what? I have friends. They made some inquiries. Turns out your supervisor has been trying to promote you for 6 months, but you kept refusing because Ethan didn't want you taking on more responsibility. Something about it taking away from family time. Mateo's voice went flat. Meanwhile, he was fucking the housemaid. So, you investigated me. I looked out for you. There's a difference. That's Adrian didn't know if she was furious or grateful. That's invasive. It is, he agreed, and I'm not apologizing. You were spiraling, and someone needed to check if all the things you thought you were losing were actually lost. Turns out most of them weren't. Your job is fine. Your credit can be fixed, and you can stay here until you find a place. The words didn't compute. I can what? Stay here. I have 3 bedrooms. I use one. The other 2 just collect dust. He said it like it was nothing, like offering a stranger a place to live was completely normal. Unless you'd rather go back to your friend's place and keep pretending you're not imposing. Mateo, I can't just... Why not? Because I don't know you. Because this is crazy. Because people don't just do things like this for strangers they met in the rain. I do. Why? He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Because 8 years ago, an old woman in Paris gave me a hotel room when I had nothing. Didn't ask questions. Didn't want anything in return, just saw someone who needed help and helped them. His voice softened. I told you I was paying it forward. I meant it. This is different. A hotel room for one night is not the same as what? As actually making a difference? You're right. It's not the same. It's better. So let me do this, Adrienne. Let me help you the way I wish someone had helped me. She wanted to say no. Every logical part of her brain was screaming that this was insane, that you don't move in with strange men no matter how expensive their suits are. But the part of her that had stood in the rain yesterday, broken and alone, recognized something in Matteo Valenti. Someone who understood what it meant to lose everything. Someone who'd come out the other side and was trying, however imperfectly, to make sure someone else didn't have to walk that road alone. 1 month, she heard herself say. I'll stay for 1 month while I save up for a deposit. And I'm paying rent. No rent. Then I'm paying for groceries and utilities and... Adrienne. His voice was gentle. Let someone help you, just this once. She thought about Rachel's cramped guest room, about sleeping on a mattress on the floor, listening to her friend and her friend's boyfriend try to have quiet sex in the next room, about the constant awareness that she was in the way. She thought about 3 bedrooms collecting dust. Okay, she whispered. 1 month. Mateo's shoulders relaxed, like he'd been holding tension she hadn't noticed until it released. Good. We'll get your things tomorrow. Tonight, just breathe. They stood on the balcony for another hour, not talking much, just existing in the same space. The city lights reflected off the sound, creating patterns that shifted and changed with the water. Somewhere out there, Ethan was probably toasting his new bride, convinced he'd won. Let him think that. Adrienne knew the truth now. The only person who'd ever had the power to make her disappear was herself. And she was done disappearing. Moving into Mateo's penthouse felt surreal in a way that Adrienne couldn't quite articulate. She'd expected awkwardness, that terrible forced politeness that comes from living with someone you barely know. Instead, she got silence, the comfortable kind where 2 people occupied the same space without feeling the need to fill every moment with conversation. Mateo left for work before sunrise most mornings. Adrienne would wake to find coffee already made, a note on the counter with the Wi-Fi password, or instructions for the building's gym. He'd return around 7, usually with takeout from whatever restaurant he'd been checking on that day, and they'd eat together on the balcony if the weather held. They didn't talk about deep things, mostly surface level. How was work? Did you see the news? This dumpling place on Capitol Hill has the best soup, safe topics, careful ones. But 3 weeks in, something shifted. Adrienne had just gotten home from her first week as night shift supervisor. Mateo had been right about the promotion, which still annoyed her, when she found him sitting in the dark living room staring at his phone with an expression she'd never seen before. Devastation, poorly hidden. Mateo? He looked up, and for a second she saw past the control, saw something raw and bleeding underneath. Sorry, he said, voice rough. Didn't hear you come in. What happened? Nothing. Just work stuff. He set his phone down too carefully, like it might explode. How was your shift? Don't do that. Don't deflect. Adrienne dropped her bag by the door. What's wrong? For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he stood, walked to the bar cart, and poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one. My ex-wife is getting remarried, he said flatly. To my former business partner. The one she was sleeping with when we were still married. He handed her a glass. They're having it at the Pierre in New York. 500 guests. She sent me an invitation. Adrienne took the whiskey, processing. She invited you to her wedding. Apparently she wants to clear the air, show that there's no hard feelings, that we've all moved on like adults. His laugh was bitter. Meanwhile, she's marrying the man who helped her steal my company and torch my reputation, and I'm supposed to smile and send a gift. Adrienne couldn't find a word big enough. That's fucked up. That's Vivian. He drained half his glass in one swallow. She always did have a talent for making cruelty look like kindness. They sat down, Adrienne on the couch, Matteo in the chair across from her. The whiskey burned going down, but it was a good burn. Grounding. Are you going to go? She asked. No, obviously not. Why not? He looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Why would I go to my ex-wife's wedding? Same reason I went to Ethan's. To prove you're fine. To show her she didn't break you. I don't need to prove anything to Vivian. Don't you? Adrienne leaned forward. You said you regretted walking away, that you wished you'd faced her. This is your chance. It's not the same. How is it not the same? Matteo's jaw clenched. Because your ex-husband is a small-time asshole who cheated on you with a housemaid. Painful, yes. Devastating, absolutely. But ultimately forgettable. Vivian is different. She's connected, powerful. She didn't just leave me. She made sure everyone we knew believed I was the problem. That I was controlling, paranoid, emotionally abusive. She turned my own friends against me, my business contacts. Even my family believed her version of events for a while. Then go and prove them all wrong. By showing up alone to watch her marry the man she left me for? That doesn't prove anything except that I'm pathetic. Not alone, Adrienne heard herself say. With me. The words hung between them. Matteo stared at her. What? Take me with you. Like you took me to Ethan's wedding, except this time it's my turn to stand there while you face the person who tried to destroy you. Her heart was racing, but the idea felt right, felt fair. You gave me closure. Let me return the favor. Adrienne, you don't understand what you're offering. Vivian's world is different. These people, they're not like Ethan and his friends. They're sharks. They'll tear you apart just for sport. Let them try. She said it with more confidence than she felt. You said it yourself 3 weeks ago. Sometimes you have to face what almost destroyed you and not flinch, so don't flinch. We'll walk in there together, let her see that you're not just fine, you're thriving, and then we'll leave. It's in 2 weeks. In New York. I have vacation time. You just started your new position. And I haven't taken a day off in 3 years. I think they'll survive. Adrienne met his eyes. Unless you don't want me there, which is fine. I get it. This is different than, I want you there. The words came out fast, almost involuntary. Matteo looked surprised he'd said them. I just don't want to drag you into my mess. You didn't drag me anywhere. I'm offering. She finished her whiskey, set the glass down with a decisive click. Besides, you owe me a trip to New York. I've never been. That's not... We wouldn't be sightseeing, Adrienne. This isn't a vacation. So we'll see the sights after we destroy your ex-wife's narrative. Win-win. Despite everything, Matteo smiled. Really smiled. The kind that reached his eyes. You're serious about this? Completely. Unless you think I can't handle it. I think you could handle anything. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. But this isn't about handling it. This is about whether I have the right to ask. You're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference. He turned back to face her, and something in his expression had changed, softened. Why? Why what? Why would you do this for me? You don't owe me anything. If anything, I still owe you for what? Giving me a place to stay when I had nowhere to go? For helping me stand up to Ethan? For making coffee every morning, even though you leave at 5:30 and could just grab something on the way to work? Adrienne stood, crossed to him. You've done more for me in 3 weeks than my ex-husband did in 7 years. So yeah, I'm going to New York with you, and we're going to walk into that wedding, and your ex-wife is going to realize she made the biggest mistake of her life. Matteo's throat worked. For a second, she thought he might argue. Instead, he said, Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until I meet Vivian. I might punch her. Please don't. She'd sue. Then I'll restrain myself. Adrian touched his arm briefly. We'll handle this the same way we handled Ethan, together. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation that felt both familiar and completely different from the first time. Daniela appeared again, this time with an assistant and a rail of dresses that looked like they belonged in museums. The dress they settled on was emerald green, simple but devastating, the kind that made Adrian look taller and somehow more dangerous. Vivian will hate this, Daniela said with satisfaction. It's perfect. Matteo arranged everything else, flights, hotel, a restaurant reservation for the night before the wedding. He moved through the planning with the precision of someone who'd done this before, who knew exactly how to navigate these waters. But Adrian saw the tension building in him, the way his jaw stayed tight, the way he'd wake up at 3 a.m. and sit on the balcony staring at nothing. The night before they flew out, she found him there again. October in Seattle meant the air had teeth, but he sat in just a t-shirt and jeans, seemingly unbothered by the cold. Can't sleep? She asked, wrapping her jacket tighter. Never could before big events. He didn't look at her. My father used to say it was because I thought too much, that I needed to learn to just act instead of analyzing everything to death. Sounds like terrible advice. It was. He also told me to marry Vivian, so his track record isn't great. Matteo's mouth twisted. He liked her, thought she was sophisticated. Good breeding, he called it, like she was a racehorse. Adrian sat down beside him. When did they get together? Vivian and your business partner? Hard to say. I didn't know about it until after she left, but looking back, the signs were there for at least a year. Maybe longer. He rubbed his face. Marcus, that was his name, my partner. He'd always been around, part of the furniture. I trusted him completely. Told him things I didn't tell anyone else, about the business, about my marriage, about everything. And he used it against you. All of it. Every insecurity I'd ever shared, every doubt, every fear. Vivian knew exactly what to say to everyone because Marcus had given her the ammunition. His voice went flat. The worst part was that I never saw it coming. I actually thought our marriage was solid. Not perfect, but solid. We had problems, sure. Everyone does. But I thought we were working on them. What kind of problems? Matteo was quiet for a long time. She wanted me to be different, more social, more willing to play the game, attend the right parties, know the right people. I built the business because I was good at seeing opportunities and taking calculated risks. But that wasn't enough for her. She wanted someone who could network, schmooze, make deals over golf and cocktails. He laughed without humor. I hate golf. Can't stand cocktail parties. I'd rather look at spreadsheets than make small talk. And she resented me for it. That's not a flaw, Matteo. That's just who you are. Try telling her that. According to Vivian, I was holding her back, keeping her from the life she deserved, so she found someone who could give her that life, and she took half of mine in the process. Adrian thought about Ethan, about all the times he'd made her feel like she wasn't enough because she worked too much, cared too much, tried too much. Different details, same story. People like that, she said slowly, they don't actually want partners. They want accessories. Someone who makes them look good and doesn't require too much maintenance. She pulled her jacket tighter against a gust of wind. And when you turn out to be a real person with your own needs and wants and limitations, they trade you in for a newer model. Is that what Ethan did? Yeah, except his newer model was barely old enough to rent a car. She shook her head. Sometimes I wonder if he ever actually loved me, or if I was just convenient, the responsible one, the one who'd work doubles and pay bills, and not ask questions while he figured out what he wanted to be when he grew up. He's an idiot. So is Vivian. They sat in silence, watching the city lights blur and sharpen as wind pushed clouds across the sky. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, going to bed at reasonable hours, not preparing to fly across the country to confront their past mistakes. I'm scared, Matteo said quietly, of seeing her, of finding out that she still has power over me. That 3 years of work and therapy and rebuilding won't matter because she'll say something or look at me a certain way and I'll be right back to being the man who stood in his empty apartment wondering how everything fell apart. Adrian reached over and took his hand. He startled slightly, Then his fingers closed around hers. That won't happen, she said. You can't know that. Yes, I can, because you're not that man anymore. You're the guy who owns half of Seattle, who makes killer coffee at 5 in the morning, who helped a stranger in the rain because someone once helped you. That's not the same person Vivian left. That person is stronger. What if I'm not? Then I'll be strong enough for both of us, just like you were for me at Ethan's wedding. She squeezed his hand. We'll walk in there together. And if it gets to be too much, if she says something that cuts too deep, we'll leave. No shame, no judgment. We'll just go. Mateo turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Gratitude, maybe. Or something deeper. Something neither of them were ready to name. I don't deserve you, he said. Good thing you're not trying to. We're just two people helping each other through the wreckage of our respective disasters. She managed to smile. Partners in trauma. That's a terrible phrase. I know, but it's accurate. He laughed, this soft sound that got stolen by the wind. Get some sleep, Adrienne. We've got a long day tomorrow. You too. I will. In a bit. She left him there, went inside, crawled into the guest bed that had started to feel less like a guest bed and more like just her bed. Through the window, she could see Mateo still sitting on the balcony, silhouetted against the city lights. She fell asleep, hoping she was right, that facing Vivian wouldn't break him, that she'd be strong enough if it did. The flight to New York was 5 hours of Mateo pretending to work while actually staring at the same email for 45 minutes. Adrienne read a book, or tried to, but kept losing her place because her brain wouldn't stop spinning through scenarios. What if Vivian was beautiful beyond reason? What if she took one look at Adrienne and laughed? What if this whole thing backfired and instead of proving Mateo had moved on, it just proved he was still hung up enough to show up? You're thinking too loud, Mateo said without looking up from his laptop. Sorry. Don't be. I'm doing the same thing. He closed the laptop with a decisive snap. Want to hear the plan? There's a plan? There's always a plan. We land at JFK around 6. Car will take us to the hotel. I booked us a suite at the Carlisle, separate rooms before you panic. We'll get settled, have dinner, get actual sleep. Tomorrow we do whatever you want. Museums, shopping, walking until your feet hurt. Something to keep us busy until the wedding at 7. You're really going to sightsee? You said you'd never been to New York. I'm not going to drag you across the country and make it entirely about my baggage. His mouth curved slightly. Besides, I haven't done the tourist thing in years. Might be good to remember why I used to like this city. You lived here? For 5 years. Built the business here before I moved everything to Seattle. He looked out the window at clouds. This place has complicated memories. Good ones? Some. The early days with Vivian were good, before everything got twisted. We used to walk through Central Park on Sundays, get coffee from this place on Amsterdam, talk about the future like it was something we were building together instead of something she was planning to steal. He caught himself. Sorry, that was bitter. You're allowed to be bitter. Doesn't mean I should wallow in it. The hotel was exactly as expensive as Adrienne had feared. All old-world elegance and the kind of understated wealth that made her feel like she should apologize for existing. The suite had 2 bedrooms, a living room bigger than her old apartment, and a view of Central Park that looked like a postcard. This is insane, Adrienne said, staring out at the trees. This is Manhattan. Mateo was unpacking with practiced efficiency. Everything here is insane. You get used to it. They had dinner at a small Italian place in the West Village, tucked away on a street that felt more like a movie set than reality. The pasta was good enough that Adrienne briefly forgot why they were there. Mateo seemed to relax too, the tension in his shoulders easing as they talked about nothing important. Books, movies, the philosophical implications of pineapple on pizza. It's wrong, Mateo said definitively. Objectively wrong. That's not how objectivity works. It is when we're talking about crimes against cuisine. Adrienne laughed, this real sound that surprised her. You're such a snob. I own restaurants. I'm allowed to have standards. You own 1 restaurant. 3, actually. Valentino's is just the flagship. He signaled for the check. There's 1 in Portland and 1 in Vancouver. Small places. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy except Michelin star chefs and $600 a plate weddings. Valentino's doesn't have a Michelin star. Yet. He smiled at that, something pleased and almost shy. Yet, they walked back to the hotel through streets that hummed with energy even at 10 p.m. New York felt alive in a way Seattle never quite managed. Louder, faster, more aggressive. Adrienne understood why Matteo had left. The next day, they did exactly what he'd promised. Museums, galleries, a walk through Central Park that turned into 3 hours of wandering. Matteo knew the city intimately, pointing out hidden gardens and quiet corners that tourists never found. They had lunch at a deli that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1950 and tasted like heaven. "This is where Marcus and I used to plan everything," Matteo said, gesturing at their booth. "Every major decision about the company happened over pastrami sandwiches and terrible coffee. Doesn't that bother you, being here?" "Not anymore. I spent too long letting those memories poison good places. Now I'm just taking them back." By 6 p.m., they were back at the hotel getting ready. Adrienne had showered and was fighting with her hair when Matteo knocked on her bedroom door. "Need help?" "Unless you're secretly trained in formal updos, probably not." He came in anyway, watched her struggle for a minute, then said, "Daniela sent someone. She's in the living room. Said something about how I can't be trusted with important hair." The someone turned out to be a young woman with purple streaks and magic hands. Within 30 minutes, Adrienne's hair was swept into something elegant and complicated, secured with pins that felt like they could survive a hurricane. The emerald dress fit even better than it had at the fitting. Daniela's assistant had included shoes, black heels that added 3 inches and somehow didn't hurt. Makeup went on easier this time, Adrienne's hands steadier. By 6:45, she was ready. Matteo was waiting in the living room, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her car used to be worth. He looked up when she walked in, and his expression did something complicated. "You look incredible," he said. "So do you. I look like every other guy in a tux. You look like you're about to ruin someone's night." "That's the plan, isn't it?" "That's exactly the plan." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "Not even a little bit." "Good. Me neither." The Pierre was 15 blocks south, close enough to walk if they'd had time. Instead, they took a car, spending the drive in silence. Matteo's jaw was tight again, his shoulders tense. Adrienne reached over and took his hand, same as she had on the balcony in Seattle. He squeezed back, hard enough to almost hurt. The hotel ballroom was everything Adrienne had imagined, and worse. Crystal chandeliers dripping light, flowers and arrangements that probably cost more than a month of her salary, 500 guests in formal wear that screamed money. A string quartet played something classical and boring. Waiters circulated with champagne that probably cost $50 a glass. "Breathe," Adrienne whispered. "I'm breathing." "You're holding your breath. Breathe." He did, one long exhale that seemed to drain some of the tension. They moved into the room, and just like at Ethan's wedding, heads turned. But this time it was different. These people knew who Matteo was. Adrienne could see recognition flickering across faces, followed by surprise, confusion, curiosity. "Matteo Valenti," a man's voice said from behind them. "I'll be damned." They turned to find a man in his 60s, silver hair, expensive suit, looking at Matteo with something between amusement and respect. "Richard," Matteo said evenly. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Could say the same about you. Thought you'd be in Seattle counting your money." Richard's eyes slid to Adrienne. "And who's this?" "Adrienne Cole. Matteo hesitated for just a second. "My girlfriend." The word sent a jolt through her, but she kept her face neutral, smiled, extended her hand. "Pleasure to meet you." "Pleasure's mine." Richard shook her hand, then turned back to Matteo. "Heard you've been doing well. Something about restaurants and hotels?" "Something like that." "Good for you. After what happened with the company, I wasn't sure you'd bounce back. But you always were resilient." He clapped Matteo on the shoulder. "Enjoy the evening. I'm sure Vivian will be thrilled you came." He walked away, leaving them standing there. "Who was that?" Adrienne asked. "Richard Kensington. He backed our original venture, lost a lot of money when Vivian and Marcus drove it into the ground." Matteo's voice was tight. "He's being polite, but he's not happy to see me." "Then why did he sound happy?" "Because these people are good at lying. It's a survival skill." They found seats near the back, deliberately not drawing more attention. The ceremony started 20 minutes later, and Adrienne got her first look at Vivienne Beaumont. Beautiful didn't cover it. The woman walking down the aisle looked like she'd been designed by a committee specifically tasked with creating the perfect human. Tall, blonde, cheekbones that could cut glass. Her dress probably cost more than Adrienne's nursing salary for a year. "That's her," Matteo said unnecessarily. "I figured." "What do you think?" Adrienne watched Vivienne glide toward the altar, watched the way she commanded every eye in the room, watched the absolute certainty in her smile. "I think she looks like she's never doubted a single decision in her life," Adrienne said honestly. "And I think that makes her terrifying." "Yeah, that's Vivienne." The ceremony was mercifully short, vows that sounded expensive, readings that name-dropped philosophers, a kiss that looked more performed than felt. Then it was over, and everyone was moving to the reception area. "We should go," Matteo said. "We came. We saw. We can leave." "Not yet." Adrienne spotted Vivienne holding court near the bar, surrounded by admirers. "I want her to see you. That was the whole point." "Adrienne, trust me." She stood, pulling him up with her, and walked directly toward the bar. Not rushing, not nervous, just walking like she belonged there. They were 10 feet away when Vivienne's eyes landed on them. Her perfect smile froze. "Matteo?" Her voice carried, making heads turn. "Matteo, oh my, I didn't think you'd actually come." She moved toward them, trailing admirers like satellites, and up close she was even more intimidating. Perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect everything. "Vivienne," Matteo said, his voice carefully neutral, "congratulations." "Thank you. This is such a surprise." "A good surprise," she added quickly, but her eyes were already cataloging Adrienne, measuring, assessing. "And you brought someone." "Adrienne Cole." Adrienne extended her hand before Matteo could introduce her. "It's lovely to meet you." Vivienne's handshake was brief, dismissive. "How do you two know each other?" "We're together," Adrienne said simply. "Together." Vivienne's smile sharpened. "How long?" "Long enough." Matteo's hand moved to Adrienne's waist, protective and possessive in a way that made Adrienne's heart skip. "But we're not here to talk about us. This is your night." "It is, isn't it?" Vivienne's eyes hadn't left Adrienne. "So where are you from, Adrienne? You don't sound like you're from New York." "Seattle. I'm a nurse. Night shift supervisor at Harbor Medical." The disdain in Vivienne's expression was subtle but unmistakable. How noble. Matteo always did have a savior complex. "That's enough," Matteo said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "What? I'm just making conversation." Vivienne touched his arm, familiar and too casual. "Don't be sensitive. You know I didn't mean anything by it." Adrienne felt Matteo tense, saw something flicker across his face. Old patterns, old hurts. This was how it must have been. Vivienne saying cutting things disguised as jokes, making him doubt his own reactions. "Actually," Adrienne said, keeping her voice light, "I think you meant exactly what you said. The difference is that now you're trying to backtrack because you forgot that belittling people in public makes you look petty, not powerful." Vivienne's eyes went cold. "Excuse me?" "You're excused," Adrienne smiled. "Beautiful wedding, by the way. Must have cost a fortune. Although I suppose that's easy when you're spending someone else's money." The temperature in the immediate area dropped 10 degrees. Vivienne's smile became razor sharp. "I don't know what Matteo's told you about our marriage, but I can assure you there are two sides to every—" "I'm sure there are. Just like I'm sure that whatever version you tell yourself helps you sleep at night, it doesn't change the facts. You left him. You took half his company, and now you're marrying the man you cheated with." Adrienne's voice stayed pleasant, conversational. "So, congratulations on that. It takes real commitment to follow through on betrayal." People were staring now. The conversation around them had died. Vivienne's perfect composure cracked. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Maybe not. But I know what I see. And what I see is a woman who spent 3 years convincing herself she made the right choice, terrified that seeing Matteo happy might prove she was wrong." "I'm not terrified of anything." "Then why are your hands shaking?" They were. Barely, but visibly. Vivienne glanced down, then back up, and for a second Adrienne saw pure rage underneath the perfect mask. Matteo, Vivienne said, ignoring Adrienne entirely. Can we talk? Alone? No, Matteo said. His voice was steady now, stronger than it had been. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Adrienne. This is ridiculous. After everything we meant to each other, meant, past tense. Matteo's hand tightened on Adrienne's waist. You wanted me to come to your wedding to prove there were no hard feelings. Fine. Here I am. No hard feelings. I hope you're happy. I hope Marcus is everything you wanted. I hope this marriage is everything ours wasn't. Matteo, and I hope, he continued, talking over her, that you never have to stand where I stood 3 years ago, wondering how the person you trusted most turned into a stranger. I hope you never feel that particular kind of betrayal, because despite everything, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Not even you. Vivienne's perfect face went pale. Enjoy your wedding, Matteo said. We're leaving. They walked away. Adrienne's heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. They made it to the lobby, out the doors, onto the street before Matteo stopped walking. He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. Intense? Incredible. He turned to face her, and he was smiling, really smiling, this huge, genuine expression that transformed his whole face. You told Vivienne Beaumont she was following through on betrayal. I might have gone too far. You went exactly far enough. He pulled her into a hug, surprising them both. Thank you for being there, for saying what I couldn't, for all of it. Adrienne hugged him back, feeling his heart racing against hers. Partners in trauma, remember? Best decision I ever made, stopping you in the rain. Best decision I ever made. Getting in your car. They stood there on a New York sidewalk, two people who'd walked into their respective nightmares and come out the other side. And for the first time in months, Adrienne felt something like hope. Maybe closure wasn't about getting revenge or proving a point. Maybe it was just about standing your ground and walking away knowing you survived. They ended up at a bar in the East Village, the kind of place that looked like it had survived 3 decades without updating anything except the liquor prices. Dark wood, dim lighting, a bartender who looked like he'd heard every story worth hearing and wasn't impressed by any of them. Matteo ordered whiskey. Adrienne got the same. To closure, seek, Matteo said, raising his glass. To walking away without looking back. They drank, and the whiskey burned less than it had the first time. Maybe Adrienne was getting used to expensive alcohol. Maybe she was just getting used to this version of her life, the one where she wore designer dresses and faced down her demons in hotel ballrooms. I can't believe you said that to her, Matteo said, still looking slightly dazed. About following through on betrayal. I can't believe I said it either. My hands were shaking so bad I thought I'd drop my champagne glass. You looked completely calm. Years of nursing training. You learn to look calm while everything's falling apart. Adrienne set her glass down. Was I too harsh? I felt like maybe I was too harsh. You were perfect. Vivienne spent 3 years having everyone tiptoe around what she did. No one calls her out because she's too connected, too powerful, too likely to make their lives difficult if they cross her. He smiled, this satisfied expression. You didn't tiptoe. You walked right up and told her the truth. She didn't know how to handle it. She looked like she wanted to kill me. She did. She probably still does, but she can't do anything about it without looking petty, which kills her more than anything you said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching other people live their Friday night lives. A couple arguing in the corner, 3 guys celebrating something loudly, a woman reading a book at the bar, steadfastly ignoring everyone. Can I ask you something? Adrienne said. Always. When you introduced me as your girlfriend, was that just for show or... She stopped, not sure how to finish the question without making it weird. Matteo looked at her for a long moment. Honestly, I don't know. It felt right to say it, natural, like I wasn't lying, even though technically I was. He ran his hand through his hair, messing up the careful styling. We've been living together for a month. We face down both our exes together. We have dinner every night. At what point does pretending become real? Adrienne's heart did something complicated in her chest. I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. She finished her whiskey, flagged the bartender for another. Everything in my life is temporary. The job promotion is still in probationary period. The apartment situation is month to month. I'm 32 years old and I own a suitcase, 3 boxes of books, and a nursing degree. I can't afford to assume anything is real. What if I told you it could be? Real, I mean. Then I'd ask what you're actually saying. Mateo took a breath. I'm saying that somewhere between the courthouse and the rain and the coffee shop in New York, I stopped thinking of you as someone I was helping, started thinking of you as someone I didn't want to lose. He met her eyes. I'm saying I wake up earlier than I need to just to make coffee before you get home from your shift. I'm saying I plan my meetings so I'm back by 7 because eating dinner alone feels wrong now. I'm saying that watching you tear apart Vivian tonight was the most attracted to someone I've been in years, which is probably unhealthy, but there it is. Adrienne couldn't breathe. Mateo, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm just telling you where I am, so you know. So it's not a question anymore. He paused. And so you can tell me if I've completely misread this whole situation and I need to shut up immediately. You haven't misread it. His eyes searched hers. No? No, Adrienne struggled to find words. I'm terrified of making another mistake, of trusting the wrong person again, of waking up 3 years from now and finding out this was just another version of Ethan. Different packaging, same ending. I'm not Ethan. I know that. Logically, I know that. But logic doesn't control the part of my brain that panics every time I start feeling safe. She looked down at her hands. You've been nothing but good to me. Patient and kind and more generous than I deserve, which is exactly what Ethan was in the beginning, before he wasn't. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need time to figure out what this is when we're not busy confronting our exes, to see if this works when it's just regular life. She looked up at him. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. Say, Mateo's voice was gentle. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. They stayed at the bar for another hour, talking about lighter things, books they'd both read, movies they disagreed about, the philosophical implications of the best pizza topping, which led to a heated debate that ended with them agreeing to disagree. By the time they got back to the hotel, it was past 2 in the morning. Adrienne's feet hurt from the heels, and she was exhausted in the bone-deep way that comes from emotional marathon days. Thank you, she said at her bedroom door, for bringing me here, for letting me be part of your closure. Thank you for coming, for standing with me, for being brave when I wasn't sure I could be. Mateo hesitated, then leaned in and kissed her forehead, brief, gentle, not asking for anything more. Sleep well, Adrienne. You too. She closed the door, leaned against it, and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The fear, the hope, the terrifying possibility that maybe Matteo Valenti was exactly what he seemed, someone good who'd been broken and put himself back together and was offering to stand beside her while she did the same. Sleep came easier than expected. The flight back to Seattle the next day was quieter than the flight out. Matteo worked on his laptop, actually worked this time, answering emails and taking calls about some property deal in Portland. Adrienne read her book and occasionally looked out the window at clouds that looked solid enough to walk on. They didn't talk about the conversation at the bar, didn't address the elephant sitting between them, just existed in the same space, comfortable and careful. Rachel was waiting when Adrienne got back to Mateo's penthouse to grab some clothes she'd left behind. So? Rachel demanded the second Adrienne walked in. How was New York? Did you see a show? Did you eat amazing food? Did Mateo's ex-wife spontaneously combust when she saw you? No shows, yes to amazing food, and no combustion, but it was close. Adrienne collapsed on the couch. I might have told her she was following through on betrayal in front of 200 wedding guests. Rachel's eyes went wide. You did what? She was being condescending. I reacted poorly. That's not reacting poorly, that's reacting perfectly. Rachel sat down beside her. So, what happened after? Did Mateo propose? Did you guys finally acknowledge the ridiculous sexual tension? We talked, at a bar, about feelings. Oh my God, you're being so cagey right now. Just tell me, are you two together or not? Adrienne rubbed her face. I don't know. Maybe? He basically told me he has feelings for me. I told him I'm terrified of making another mistake. We agreed to take time and figure it out. That's the most mature, healthy response possible, and I hate it. Rachel groaned. Where's the drama? Where's the grand romantic gesture? This isn't a movie, Rach. It could be. Hot billionaire rescues nurse from the rain, helps her confront her cheating ex, takes her to New York, declares his feelings. That's literally a rom-com plot. He's not a billionaire. Millionaire, whatever. The point stands. Rachel studied her. You have feelings for him too. Don't even try to deny it. I'm not denying it. I'm just being realistic. It's been 2 months since my divorce. That's not enough time to… To what? To know if someone's good for you? Adrienne, you knew Ethan was wrong for you after 6 months. You just ignored it for 7 years. Rachel took her hand. I'm not saying rush into anything. I'm saying don't sabotage something good because you're scared it might turn bad. What if it does turn bad? Then you'll survive it, like you survived Ethan, like you survived losing your home and your savings and thinking your life was over. Rachel squeezed her hand. You're stronger than you think. Stop acting like you're made of glass. Adrienne wanted to argue, but Rachel was right. She'd survived worse than heartbreak. She'd survived this too, whatever this turned into. The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to domestic. Mateo stopped pretending he didn't time his schedule around hers. Adrienne stopped pretending she didn't look forward to coming home and finding him already there. They cooked together, badly, since neither of them were great in the kitchen, and laughed at the results. They watched movies and argued about plot holes. They existed in each other's space without needing to fill every silence. And slowly, carefully, they started touching more. Nothing dramatic, just hands brushing when they passed coffee mugs. Mateo's hand on her back when they walked through crowds. Adrienne falling asleep on the couch during a movie and waking up with a blanket draped over her, and Mateo reading in the chair across from her. It felt safe, which made it terrifying. Then Ethan called. Adrienne was at work when her phone lit up with his name. She stared at it for 3 rings before her coworker Maya grabbed it. Don't answer. I'm not going to. Good. Because whatever he wants, it's not worth your time. Maya handed the phone back. How's things with the mysterious benefactor? His name is Mateo, and things are complicated. Complicated good or complicated bad? Complicated confusing. Adrienne shoved her phone in her pocket. But mostly good, I think. Maybe. You're overthinking it. That's what everyone keeps saying. The phone rang again during her lunch break. Ethan, again. This time, he left a voicemail. Adrienne waited until she was off shift to listen to it. Hey, it's me. Ethan, obviously. Listen, I know this is weird, but I need to talk to you. It's important. Can you call me back, please? His voice sounded wrong, strained, almost desperate. She deleted the voicemail. He called again the next day, and the day after that. By the 4th day, Adrienne was ready to block his number when he showed up at the hospital. She was walking to her car after a 12-hour shift when she saw him leaning against her Honda, looking like he hadn't slept in days. What are you doing here? She asked, stopping 10 feet away. You wouldn't answer my calls. Because I don't want to talk to you. Pretty clear message, Ethan. I know, I get it, but I need 5 minutes. Please, Adrienne, just 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, she walked closer. What do you want? It's Lila. He ran his hand through his hair. She left, took half our savings and moved to California with some guy she met online. Adrienne blinked. When? 3 weeks ago, right after the wedding. Turns out she was planning it for months. His laugh was bitter. I came home from work and everything was gone. Her clothes, her stuff, even the TV, just gone. I'm sorry that happened to you. Are you? He looked at her with something that might have been hope. Because you have every right to be happy about it, to think it's karma or whatever. I don't think it's karma. I think it's sad. For both of you. Adrienne crossed her arms. But I still don't understand why you're telling me this. Because I made a mistake. The words came out fast, like he'd been rehearsing them. Huge mistake. I thought Lila was what I wanted. Someone young and exciting and different. But she wasn't. She was just using me. And I threw away someone real for someone fake. Adrienne's stomach dropped. Ethan, don't. I miss you. I miss us. I know I don't have any right to ask, but he took a step closer. Can we try again? Can we just, can we talk about it? Maybe get coffee and... No. Adrian, no. We're not getting coffee. We're not trying again. We're not doing anything except saying goodbye right now. She kept her voice firm. I'm sorry Lila hurt you. I'm sorry you're going through this. But that doesn't change what you did. You don't get to come back because your backup plan didn't work out. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He didn't have an answer for that. You made a choice, Adrian said. You chose Lila over me, over our marriage, over 7 years. And I've spent 2 months rebuilding everything you burned down. I'm not going backwards because you suddenly realized the grass wasn't greener. I still love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. The version that worked herself to death and never asked for anything and made you feel like a good person just by tolerating you. She took a breath. But that person doesn't exist anymore. I'm different now. And you don't even know who I am. Then let me get to know you again. I don't want you to. The words came out gentler than she expected. I don't want to be angry at you anymore, Ethan. But I also don't want to be anything to you. I want to move on. And I can't do that if you keep showing up. His face crumpled. There's someone else, isn't there? That guy from the wedding, the one who owns the restaurant. That's not relevant. It is to me. Is that why you moved on so fast? Because you already had someone waiting? I moved on fast because there was nothing left to hold on to. You made sure of that. Adrienne pulled her keys from her pocket. I need you to leave, Ethan, and I need you to not call me again. Not show up at my work. Not try to fix something that's been broken for years. We could... Goodbye, Ethan. She got in her car and drove away, watching him get smaller in the rearview mirror until he disappeared entirely. By the time she got back to Mateo's penthouse, she was shaking. He was in the kitchen making dinner, or attempting to, judging by the smoke coming from the pan. He looked up when she walked in, took one look at her face, and turned off the stove. What happened? Ethan showed up at the hospital. Mateo's expression went cold. Did he hurt you? No, nothing like that. He just... She set her bag down. Lila left him. 3 weeks after the wedding, took his money and ran off with some guy. Good for her. That startled a laugh out of Adrienne. That's harsh. He cheated on you with her. She cheated on him with someone else. That's not harsh. That's symmetry. Mateo crossed to her. What did he want? To try again. Said he made a mistake. Said he missed me. She met Mateo's eyes. I told him no. Did you want to say yes? Not even for a second. The truth of it surprised her. A month ago, maybe I would have been tempted, not because I wanted him back, but because it would have been easier than starting over. But now, she shook her head. Now I just feel nothing. He's a stranger who used to sleep in my bed. That's all. Mateo's shoulders relaxed slightly. How do you feel? Tired? Relieved? Like I closed a door I didn't know was still open. She looked at the smoking pan. What were you trying to make? Stir fry. It's not going well. I can see that. Want help? Desperately. They cooked together, Adrienne salvaging what she could of Mateo's disaster, while he chopped vegetables with the careful concentration of someone who didn't cook often. They ate on the balcony even though it was cold, wrapped in blankets, watching the city lights flicker on as the sun set. Can I tell you something? Adrienne said. Always? I think I'm ready to stop being scared, to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. She set her plate down. I think I'm ready to see what this is, what we could be. Mateo went very still. You're sure? Not completely. I'm still terrified, but I'm more afraid of losing this because I was too scared to try than I am of trying and getting hurt. She turned to face him fully. So if the offer still stands... He kissed her before she could finish the sentence. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was 3 months of tension releasing at once, his hands in her hair, her fingers gripping his shirt, both of them trying to get closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Mateo pressed his forehead to hers. The offer stands, he said. It's always stood. It's going to keep standing until you tell me to walk away. Don't walk away. Never. He kissed her again, softer this time, and Adrienne felt something shift inside her, some last piece of armor falling away. She'd been so focused on protecting herself from getting hurt again that she'd forgotten what it felt like to just let someone in. Matteo pulled back slightly. We should talk about logistics. If we're doing this, really doing this, we should probably discuss what that means. Very romantic. I'm serious, you're living here temporarily. We should figure out if that changes, if you want your own space, if I don't want my own space. The words came out before she could second guess them. I want to stay here, with you, if that's okay. It's more than okay. His smile was soft. But I want you to know you're not staying because you have nowhere else to go. You're staying because we both want you here. I know that. Good. They sat there for a long time, wrapped in blankets, watching the city. At some point, Matteo's arm went around her shoulders. At some point, Adrienne's head ended up resting on his chest. At some point, Safe stopped feeling scary. The weeks that followed were different in small ways and huge ways simultaneously. They still had dinner together every night, but now it included casual touches. Matteo's hand on her back, Adrienne leaning into his shoulder. They still watched movies, but now she curled up beside him instead of maintaining careful distance. They still talked about everything and nothing, but now the conversation sometimes ended in kissing instead of polite goodnights. It wasn't perfect. They fought about stupid things, Matteo's tendency to work through dinner, Adrienne's habit of leaving coffee cups everywhere, the thermostat setting that nearly caused a Cold War. But they fought like adults, with words instead of silence, with resolution instead of resentment. And slowly, Adrienne felt herself relaxing into a version of happiness she'd forgotten existed. She took the promotion officially, started actually enjoying her job instead of just surviving it, made friends with her coworkers instead of keeping everyone at arm's length, started thinking about the future in terms of months and years instead of just getting through the next week. Matteo started smiling more, laughing easier. The tension that had lived in his shoulders for as long as she'd known him began to ease. He talked about Vivian less, and when he did, it was with distance instead of pain. 3 months after New York, Adrienne woke up on a Saturday morning to find Matteo sitting on the edge of the bed, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "What?" she asked, voice rough with sleep. "I bought something. I want to show you." "What time is it?" 7. "Too early, I know, but I've been awake since 5 and I can't wait anymore." He stood, offered his hand. "Come on, get dressed. It's a 20-minute drive." Adrienne groaned but let him pull her up. "This better be good." "It is. I promise." 30 minutes later, they were pulling up to a house in Ballard, a neighborhood Adrienne had always loved but never thought she could afford. The house itself was modest by Seattle standards. 2 stories, craftsman style, with a front porch and a yard that needed work. "What are we doing here?" Adrienne asked. Matteo turned off the car. "This is the something I bought." She stared at him. "You bought a house." "I bought a house." "Why?" "Because the penthouse is mine, my space, my furniture, my everything. And I wanted us to have something that was ours, that we chose together, that we could build into whatever we wanted." He looked almost nervous. "I know I should have asked first. I know I probably overstepped. But the listing went up yesterday and it was perfect and I couldn't not." Adrienne kissed him, cutting off the rambling. "Show me inside." The house was empty except for potential. Hardwood floors that needed refinishing, a kitchen that hadn't been updated since the 90s. 3 bedrooms upstairs, one of which had a view of the Olympics on clear days. A backyard with a garden that someone had loved once upon a time, but had since been reclaimed by weeds. "It needs work," Matteo said as they walked through the rooms. "A lot of work. New kitchen, definitely. Bathrooms need gutting. The roof is only a few years old, but the windows should be replaced. I'm estimating 6 months of renovations before it's actually livable." "It's perfect," Adrienne said. "It's a disaster." "It's perfect," she repeated, "because it's not done. It's not someone else's vision. It's potential. We get to decide what it becomes." Matteo pulled her close. "So you like it?" "I love it, even though you absolutely should have asked me before buying an entire house." "I know, I'm sorry. I got excited and impulsive and probably mildly unhinged about the whole thing." "Good. I like you mildly unhinged." She looked around the empty living room, imagining furniture they'd choose together, paint colors they'd argue about, all the small decisions that turned a house into a home. When can we start renovations? As soon as you want. I already have contractors lined up. Of course you do. They spent the rest of the morning walking through the house, making plans. The kitchen would be open concept. The master bathroom would have a soaking tub. The backyard would have a garden and maybe space for a fire pit. Small dreams, normal dreams, the kind of dreams that felt impossibly far away just 4 months ago. By the time they left, Adrienne felt something she hadn't felt in years. Excitement about the future. Not fear, not anxiety. Just pure, uncomplicated excitement about what came next. "Thank you," she said as they drove back to the penthouse. "For what?" "For this. For the house and the future and the chance to build something that's just ours." She reached over, took his hand. "For stopping me in the rain that day. For not letting me disappear." Matteo lifted her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. "Best decision I ever made." "Mine too." And for the first time since standing outside that courthouse in the February rain, Adrienne believed it. The renovations took 8 months instead of 6 because nothing ever goes according to plan. The contractor found water damage behind the kitchen walls. The city permit office lost their paperwork twice. The custom cabinets Adrienne fell in love with were back-ordered for 3 months. But none of it felt like a disaster. It just felt like life. Messy and imperfect and exactly what they'd signed up for. They moved in on a rainy Saturday in April, almost exactly a year after Adrienne had stood outside the courthouse watching her marriage dissolve into puddles. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. "Careful with that box," Matteo called from the kitchen, where he was trying to figure out which drawer should hold silverware. "It's labeled fragile for a reason." "It's plates," Adrienne said, setting it down on the counter. "They're literally designed to be stacked. Expensive plates. That you insisted on buying even though I said we could use my old ones. Your old ones were from Target, and they worked perfectly fine for 7 years. He crossed to her, slid his arms around her waist from behind. "We're not doing fine anymore. We're doing good. Good requires plates that didn't come in a set of 12 for $40. Adrienne leaned back against him, looking around the kitchen they'd spent months planning. White cabinets, butcher block counters, a farmhouse sink she'd fallen in love with despite Matteo's concerns about practicality. It was exactly what she'd wanted, which still felt strange after years of compromising on everything. "I can't believe we live here," she said. "We've been living here for approximately 4 hours. Still counts." She turned in his arms. "Thank you. For all of this. For pushing for the good plates and the expensive faucet and the ridiculous chandelier in the dining room. The chandelier was your idea. And you could have said no, but you didn't. I never say no to you." He kissed her forehead. "It's becoming a problem, actually. I have no spine where you're concerned." "Good. I'm going to exploit that ruthlessly." They spent the rest of the day unpacking, arguing about furniture placement, and ordering pizza because neither of them had the energy to cook. By midnight, they'd made a significant dent in the boxes. By 1 a.m., they'd given up and collapsed on the couch, one of the few pieces of furniture actually in its proper place. "We should sleep," Matteo said, but he didn't move. "We should?" Adrienne didn't move either. "The bed's not even set up." "I know. We could sleep here, on the couch, like college students." "We're not college students." "No, but we're exhausted homeowners who made questionable decisions about move-in timing." He pulled her closer. "This works." It did work. Adrienne fell asleep wrapped in Matteo's arms, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the smell of fresh paint, feeling more at home than she had in years. The first few weeks in the house were chaos, learning which light switches controlled what, figuring out that the garbage disposal made a weird noise but still worked fine, discovering that the neighbor's cat liked to sleep on their back porch and would meow indignantly if not given adequate attention. Adrienne settled into a routine. Work 3 12-hour shifts, come home to Matteo cooking something that may or may not be edible, fall into bed grateful for the 2 days off that followed. Matteo traveled more than she'd expected, checking on his various properties, meeting with investors, doing whatever it was that wealthy people did to stay wealthy. But he always came back, usually with stories about terrible hotel coffee and contractors who thought they could overcharge him. You know you don't have to keep working, he said one night over dinner. They'd been in the house for 2 months, and Adrienne had just finished a particularly brutal week. The money from the restaurants is more than enough for both of us. She set down her fork. We've talked about this. I know. But you're exhausted. You're working yourself into the ground for a job that doesn't appreciate you nearly enough. I like my job. You like helping people. There's a difference. He reached across the table, took her hand. I'm not saying quit forever. I'm saying take a break. Figure out what you actually want to do instead of what you have to do to survive. What I want to do is keep working. Why? The question caught her off guard. Because I need to. Because I can't be the woman who gets rescued by a rich man and stops having her own life. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Adrienne pulled her hand back. You bought a house. You pay for everything. You keep telling me I don't need to work. How is that different from what I had with Ethan? Different tax bracket, same dynamic. Mateo's jaw tightened. It's completely different. Ethan took from you, kept you working to support his failures while he contributed nothing. I'm offering you a choice. The option to work because you want to, not because you'll lose everything if you don't. And what happens if we don't work out? If this falls apart, and I've given up my career for a man? Again? We're not going to fall apart. You can't know that. I can know that I'm not going anywhere. That I'm not going to cheat on you or leave you or make you feel small. His voice rose slightly. I can know that I've spent the last year proving I'm not Ethan, and it's starting to really bother me that you keep comparing us. Adrienne stood, her chair scraping against the floor. I'm not comparing you. I'm protecting myself. From what? From being happy? From accepting that someone might actually want to take care of you? From making the same mistakes I made before? The words echoed in the kitchen. Mateo stared at her, hurt flashing across his face before he controlled it. I'm going for a walk, he said quietly. I need some air. He left before she could respond. The front door closed with a careful click that was somehow worse than slamming. Adrienne stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the life they'd built together, and felt the old fear creeping back in. The certainty that she'd just ruined everything, that she'd pushed too hard or not hard enough, that she was fundamentally broken in some way that made happiness impossible. Her phone buzzed. Rachel. Hey, Adrienne answered. You sound terrible. What happened? Mateo and I had a fight. About? About me working, about me being terrified of depending on someone, about me being completely unable to accept that someone might actually love me without ulterior motives. The words tumbled out. I compared him to Ethan, not directly, but close enough. And I heard him. I could see it on his face. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Do you think he's like Ethan? No, not at all. He's nothing like Ethan. Then why did you say it? Because I'm scared. Because every time things get good, every time I start to relax, my brain tells me I'm being naive, that I'm setting myself up for the same fall. Adrienne, you know that's not rational, right? That's trauma talking, not truth. I know. Logically, I know. But logic doesn't control the panic that sets in when someone suggests I might not need to have an escape plan. Have you told Mateo this? Actually explained it instead of just fighting about the surface stuff? No. Why not? Because it sounds crazy. Because saying I'm terrified you'll turn into my ex-husband, even though you've given me no reason to think that, makes me sound like I need therapy. You probably do need therapy. We all do. But that's not the point. Rachel's voice softened. The point is that Mateo can't read your mind. He doesn't know you're fighting with trauma unless you tell him. And if you don't tell him, he's just going to think you don't trust him. I do trust him. Then prove it. Go find him. Have the actual conversation instead of the surface one. Adrienne looked out the kitchen window. Rain had started falling, because of course it had. What if I'm too broken for this? What if I can't get past what Ethan did? Then you get help getting past it. But you don't give up on something good because you're afraid it might turn bad. That's just another way of letting Ethan win. After they hung up, Adrienne grabbed her jacket and went looking for Mateo. She found him 3 blocks away, sitting on a bench in the small neighborhood park, getting steadily soaked by the rain. You're going to get hypothermia, she said, sitting down beside him. Seemed fitting, full circle from where we started. He didn't look at her. I'm not trying to control you, Adrian, or make you dependent. I just want you to have options, to not have to work yourself to exhaustion because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. I know. And I'm sorry for what I said, for comparing you to him when you're nothing alike. Then why did you? Because I'm terrified. The admission came easier than she expected. I'm terrified that if I let myself depend on you, even a little bit, you'll use it against me. That you'll turn into someone different. That I'll wake up one day and realize I made the same mistake twice. Matteo finally looked at her. I can't promise I'll never hurt you. People hurt each other even when they don't mean to. But I can promise I'll never deliberately tear you down. Never make you small. Never use your trust as a weapon. He took her hand. And I can promise that if you tell me you're scared, I'll listen instead of getting defensive. You're allowed to get defensive when I'm being unfair to you. I'm allowed to have feelings about it, but I should have asked why you were panicking instead of just being hurt that you were. He squeezed her hand. We're both still figuring this out, how to be together without the baggage from before crushing us. It's not going to be perfect. I don't need perfect. I just need honest. Then honestly, it kills me that you work 70-hour weeks and come home too tired to do anything but sleep. Not because I want you dependent on me, but because I want you to have energy for the things you actually enjoy. For your friends, for hobbies, for us. He brushed wet hair out of her face. You spent 7 years putting yourself last. I'm asking you to try putting yourself first, just for a while. See what happens. Adrian thought about it, really thought about it, instead of just reacting with fear. What if I hate not working? Then you go back to work. This isn't permanent unless you want it to be. And you won't resent me for taking advantage of your money? It's our money. Everything I have is yours too. That's how this works. He stood, pulled her up with him. Come on, let's go home before we both get pneumonia and prove we learned nothing from our dramatic rainy origins. They walked home hand in hand, rain soaking through their clothes. Back in the kitchen, Adrian toweled off her hair while Matteo changed into dry clothes. I'll think about it, she said when he came back downstairs. Taking time off. Not forever, but maybe a few months. Figure out what I want instead of what I think I should want. That's all I'm asking. And I'll try to stop comparing you to Ethan, or at least tell you when I'm doing it so you understand it's about my baggage, not you. I'd appreciate that. He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. We're going to mess this up sometimes. Both of us. The question is whether we can mess up and still choose each other. I choose you, Adrian said. Even when I'm scared, even when I'm being irrational, I choose you. I choose you too. They stood in their kitchen, dripping on their expensive floors, and Adrian felt something settle inside her. Some piece of fear letting go. The next morning, she put in her notice at the hospital. 3 months, which gave them time to find her replacement and let her finish out current projects. Her supervisor was disappointed but understanding. You've given this place everything for years, she said. It's okay to take something for yourself now. The 3 months passed faster than Adrian expected. She worked her shifts, trained her replacements around, said goodbye to coworkers she'd come to love. On her last day, they threw her a party in the break room with grocery store cake and too many speeches about what a good nurse she'd been. You'll come back eventually, Maya said, hugging her goodbye. People like you always do. The job gets in your blood. Maybe, but not for a while. Good. You deserve a break. Walking out of the hospital for the last time felt surreal. Adrienne had spent so much of her identity wrapped up in being a nurse, in being useful, in being needed. Without that, she wasn't sure who she was, but over the next few weeks, she started to figure it out. She slept until 9 a.m. without feeling guilty, took up painting badly and enjoyed it anyway, started volunteering at a free clinic 2 days a week, enough to feel useful without being consumed by it, read books in the middle of the afternoon, learned to cook without burning everything, spent time with Rachel without having to cancel because of shift changes. And she spent time with Matteo, real time, not just exhausted coexistence. They took weekend trips to places they'd always meant to visit, had long conversations about nothing important, fought about stupid things, and made up without resentment. 3 months into her unemployment, Adrienne woke up and realized she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy in a way that didn't feel precarious or temporary. "You're smiling at nothing," Matteo observed from his side of the bed. "I'm smiling at everything." She rolled over to face him. "I think I might be okay. Like, actually okay." "You've been okay for a while." "No, I've been better. There's a difference. Better means you're not actively falling apart. Okay means you've actually put yourself back together." She touched his face. "I'm put back together, finally." "Good, because I have something to ask you, and I need you put together for it." Her heart jumped. "What?" Matteo got out of bed, walked to his dresser, and pulled out a small box. Adrienne's breath caught. "Wait," she said. "Wait, are you?" "Let me get through this before you panic." He sat back down on the bed, box in hand but not opening it. "I know we've only been together for a year. I know that's fast by most standards, and I know you're still working through trust issues and fear and all the reasonable baggage that comes from having your heart destroyed by someone who promised to protect it." "Matteo, but here's the thing. I don't need more time to know that you're it for me, that I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life, that I want to fight about thermostats and expensive plates and whose turn it is to deal with the neighbor's cat. I want all of it, the mess and the beautiful and everything in between." He opened the box. "So I'm asking, not because I think you need to say yes right now, but because I want you to know that I'm sure, completely sure." The ring was simple. Platinum band with a single diamond, elegant without being ostentatious. Exactly what Adrienne would have chosen if she'd been asked. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You could say yes, or you could say you need time, or you could say this is completely insane and I should have waited longer." He was trying to sound casual, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. All of those are acceptable answers. Adrienne looked at the ring, looked at Matteo, looked at the life they'd built together. This messy, imperfect, beautiful life that had started with rain and divorce papers and a stranger who'd refused to let her disappear. "Ask me," she said. "What?" "The actual question. Ask me properly." Matteo smiled, this huge, genuine expression that made him look 10 years younger. "Adrienne Cole, will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came out before she could second-guess it. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably had Daniela help him figure out her size through some elaborate scheme involving borrowed jewelry. "I thought you'd want more time," he admitted. "I thought I would too. But turns out when someone asks if you want to spend your life with them, and the answer is obviously yes, waiting is just fear wearing a responsible mask." She kissed him. "So yes, let's get married. Let's do this properly." "What's properly?" "I have no idea, but we'll figure it out together." They told Rachel first, who screamed loud enough to wake her neighbors and demanded to be maid of honor immediately. Then Matteo's parents, who were cautiously supportive in the way that wealthy people were when their son made unexpected decisions. Then slowly, carefully, the rest of the world. The wedding was small. Just immediate family and close friends, held in their backyard under a canopy of lights, because Adrienne refused to do anything formal after witnessing what that looked like at Ethan and Vivian's respective disasters. A judge from Matteo's network officiated. Daniela styled Adrienne's hair. Rachel cried through the entire ceremony. Matteo's vows were simple. "I promise to always make coffee before you get home, to fight fair, to choose you every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Adrienne's were equally simple. "I promise to let you take care of me sometimes, to trust you even when I'm scared, to build a life with you instead of an escape plan from you." They exchanged rings. Adrienne's engagement ring plus a matching band, Matteo's a simple platinum that matched hers. "You may kiss your bride," the judge said. And he did. The reception was in the backyard, catered by Valentino's because Matteo owned it, and also because the food was incredible. They danced to a song neither of them particularly liked, but that felt right in the moment. They cut a cake that was too fancy for the casual vibe but tasted amazing. They laughed and drank and celebrated with the small group of people who mattered. At one point, Adrienne found herself standing at the edge of the yard, watching Matteo laugh at something Rachel's husband said, and felt overwhelmingly grateful for every terrible thing that had brought her here. "You okay?" Rachel appeared beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. "I'm more than okay." Adrienne took a glass. "I'm married to someone who actually sees me, who wants me to be more, not less. Who thinks my broken pieces are just part of the picture instead of something to fix. You deserve that." "I'm starting to believe it." They clinked glasses, and Adrienne drank to new beginnings and second chances and the absolute miracle of finding someone who chose her on purpose. 3 months after the wedding, Adrienne missed her period. She didn't panic immediately. She'd been irregular before, stress and shift work throwing everything off. But after 2 weeks, she bought a test. Then another one. Then a third, because apparently she needed confirmation in triplicate. All 3 were positive. She stared at them lined up on the bathroom counter, trying to figure out how she felt. They'd talked about kids in abstract terms. Someday, eventually. Not right now. They'd been married for 3 months, together for less than 2 years. This was fast. This was too fast. This was also happening. Matteo found her still sitting on the bathroom floor 20 minutes later, surrounded by positive pregnancy tests. "Adrienne, you okay?" He saw the tests and went very still. Are those? "I'm pregnant." Saying it out loud made it real. "I'm pregnant and we've been married for 3 months and I don't know how this happened. I mean, I know how it happened, but we were careful and I thought—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Matteo sat down beside her on the floor. "How do you feel?" "Terrified, excited, completely overwhelmed, all of it at once." She looked at him. "How do you feel?" "The same, except maybe more excited than terrified." He picked up one of the tests, studying it like it might reveal secrets. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby? That's—" He laughed, this slightly hysterical sound. "That's insane. We barely figured out how to be married." "I know. We haven't even finished decorating the 3rd bedroom." "I know. My parents are going to have opinions. So many opinions." "I know." Adrienne leaned against him. "Are we ready for this?" "Absolutely not. But I don't think anyone ever really is." He wrapped his arm around her. "The question is whether we want to try anyway." Adrienne thought about it. About the terror and the excitement and the complete insanity of bringing a whole person into the world when they were still figuring out their own lives. About how nothing in the last 2 years had gone according to plan, and how that had somehow ended up being perfect. "I want to try," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah. Let's have a baby. Let's be completely unprepared and terrified and do it anyway." Matteo kissed her temple. "Okay then, we're having a baby." The pregnancy was simultaneously endless and too fast. Morning sickness that lasted well into the afternoon. Mood swings that made Adrienne cry over commercials. A body that changed in ways she wasn't prepared for. Matteo handled all of it with patience that seemed impossible. Holding her hair back when she threw up, rubbing her feet when they swelled, assembling baby furniture at 2 a.m. because she suddenly decided the nursery wasn't ready. "You're being too nice," she told him one night in her 3rd trimester. "It's suspicious. I'm being appropriately nice for someone whose wife is growing a human. No one is this patient. What's your angle?" "My angle is that I love you and you're carrying our child and I'd like to avoid being murdered in my sleep." He set down the crib instructions he'd been struggling with. "Also, I'm terrified. Being overly helpful is how I cope with terror." "You're terrified?" "Of course I'm terrified. We're about to be responsible for keeping a tiny human alive. I can barely keep plants alive." "We don't have any plants." "Exactly, because I know my limitations." He came over to the rocking chair where she was sitting, knelt down so they were eye level. "But I'm also excited to meet whoever this person is, to see you be a mother, to figure out this whole parenting thing together." Adrienne's hand went to her stomach, where their daughter, they'd found out at the 20-week ultrasound, was currently doing gymnastics. "What if we mess her up?" "We probably will, a little bit. All parents do." He put his hand over hers. "But we'll also love her. And we'll try our best. And we'll apologize when we screw up. That's more than a lot of kids get. That's a depressingly low bar. Welcome to parenthood." Their daughter arrived 3 weeks early on a Tuesday morning in February. Adrienne's water broke while she was making breakfast, and Matteo went into organized panic mode, grabbing the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, calling the doctor, driving to the hospital with excessive caution, while Adrienne told him to speed up between contractions. 14 hours later, Emma Rose Valenti entered the world screaming her displeasure at being evicted from her comfortable prenatal existence. "She's perfect," Matteo said, crying openly as he held their daughter for the first time. "She's wrinkly and covered in goo," Adrienne said, exhausted but unable to stop staring. "Perfect," he repeated. And watching him hold their daughter with a combination of terror and absolute love, Adrienne had to agree. The first few weeks were chaos. Sleepless nights and endless diapers, and learning that babies cried for reasons that made sense only to them. Adrienne's body ached in new ways. Matteo developed an impressive ability to function on 3 hours of sleep. Emma screamed and slept and ate and pooped, blissfully unaware that her parents had no idea what they were doing. But slowly, they figured it out, learned Emma's different cries, developed a routine that worked most of the time, took turns so they each got something resembling sleep. And somewhere in the chaos, Adrienne realized something. She was happy. Genuinely, completely happy in a way that wasn't dependent on everything being perfect. Happy in the mess and the exhaustion and the complete upending of everything she'd planned. One night, 3 months after Emma was born, Adrienne woke up to feed her and found Matteo already in the nursery, holding their daughter while she slept. "You're supposed to be sleeping," Adrienne whispered from the doorway. "Couldn't. She's too fascinating." He looked up, smiled. "Did you know she makes this little snuffling sound when she dreams? Like a tiny piglet." "I did know that, because I've been the one doing most of the night feedings." "Fair point." He stood carefully, transferred Emma to her crib without waking her, a skill they'd both developed through extensive trial and error. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." They walked back to their bedroom, climbed into bed. Matteo pulled her close, and Adrienne realized this was the first time in 3 months they'd been in bed at the same time without one of them immediately passing out. "2 years ago," Matteo said quietly, "I was alone in a penthouse, convinced I'd never trust anyone enough to try again. That Vivian had broken something in me that couldn't be fixed. And now I have you and Emma and this life that I didn't even know I wanted." "Where are you going with this?" "I'm saying thank you for getting in my car that day, for taking a chance on someone you didn't know, for building this with me even when you were terrified it would fall apart." He kissed her forehead. "I'm saying you're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and our tiny piglet daughter." Adrienne's eyes stung with tears she was too tired to cry. "You're the best thing that happened to me, too. You and your terrible cooking and your expensive taste in plates and your complete inability to walk past someone who needs help. It's a character flaw. It's the reason we're here." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and when Emma woke up screaming 2 hours later, they both got up to handle it together. The months passed. Emma grew from a newborn to an infant who smiled and babbled and grabbed everything within reach. The house filled with baby gear and scattered toys, and the particular chaos that comes with small children. Matteo went back to work but arranged his schedule so he was home more. Adrienne started thinking about going back to nursing part-time, maybe in a year when Emma was older. They had their first anniversary dinner at home because babysitters were expensive and also they were both too tired to go out. They ordered takeout from Valentino's, ate it on the couch while Emma slept, and agreed it was perfect. "I can't believe it's only been a year," Adrienne said, stealing one of Matteo's raviolis. "Feels longer. Rude." "I meant it in a good way, like we've lived a whole life in 12 months. We kind of have. Got married, had a baby, learned to function on 4 hours of sleep. That's a pretty full year." Matteo set down his fork. "I have something for you." "We agreed no gifts." "This isn't a gift. It's more of a..." He pulled an envelope from between the couch cushions. "A statement." Adrienne opened it carefully. Inside were legal documents she didn't immediately understand. Then she saw her name. Her name on the deed to the house, her name on paperwork for Matteo's businesses, her name on everything he owned. "What is this?" she whispered. "Everything that's mine is legally yours too now. Complete ownership, not just spousal rights. If something happens to me, it all goes to you and Emma. No questions, no probate, no fighting with my parents or lawyers or anyone else. He took her hand. I know you've been worried about being dependent, about not having your own security. This is me making sure you always have it, no matter what. Mateo, this is too much. It's exactly right. You gave up your career to be home with Emma. The least I can do is make sure you're protected. I didn't give it up. I paused it. Either way, you made a sacrifice. This is me making sure that sacrifice doesn't leave you vulnerable. He squeezed her hand. I trust you with everything, Adrienne. My heart, my daughter, my whole life. Trusting you with the legal paperwork is the easy part. Adrienne looked at the documents, at this man who kept finding new ways to prove he was nothing like the one she'd married before, and felt something click into place. The last piece of fear, finally letting go. Thank you, she managed. For this. For all of it. For being someone I can trust with everything. Thank you for letting me. Emma chose that moment to wake up screaming because babies have impeccable timing. They both laughed and Adrienne went to get their daughter while Mateo cleared the takeout containers. This was her life now, messy and imperfect and nothing like what she'd planned. Better than what she'd planned? 2 years after standing in the rain outside a courthouse, Adrienne sat in her backyard watching Mateo push Emma on the swing set they'd installed last month. The sky was that particular Seattle gray that promised rain but hadn't delivered yet. The garden she'd planted was thriving. The house they'd renovated together stood solid behind them. Higher! Emma shrieked, and Mateo pushed harder, laughing when she squealed with delight. Rachel appeared through the side gate, carrying a bottle of wine. Am I interrupting? Never. Mateo, wine. He caught the swing, lifted Emma out, and carried her over to where a blanket was spread on the grass. She immediately started pulling up grass and examining it with the intense focus only toddlers could manage. How's the chaos? Rachel asked, pouring 3 glasses even though it was only 4 p.m. Exhausting. Perfect. The usual. Adrienne accepted a glass. How's the baby planning going? We're officially starting IVF next month, which is terrifying and expensive, and I'm choosing to believe will work because I can't handle thinking about the alternative. It'll work, Mateo said with unfounded confidence. You're too stubborn for it not to. That's not how biology works, but I appreciate the vote of confidence. They sat in the grass drinking wine while Emma destroyed the yard, and Adrienne felt overwhelmingly grateful for this weird little family they'd cobbled together from broken pieces. Can I tell you something? She said to Rachel. And you have to promise not to make it weird. I make everything weird. It's my defining characteristic. Fair, but try anyway. Adrienne took a breath. I'm glad Ethan cheated on me. Rachel choked on her wine. What? I'm glad it happened. Glad the marriage fell apart. Glad I lost everything. She looked at Mateo, at Emma, at the house, and the life and the future that wouldn't exist if her past hadn't exploded. Because if it hadn't, I'd still be trapped in something that was slowly killing me, and I wouldn't have this. That's either really healthy or deeply concerning, Rachel said. I can't tell which. It's both, but it's true. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing in disguise. It just takes a while to see it. Mateo leaned over and kissed her, tasting like wine and the future. I'm glad too. For my disaster and yours, for all the broken pieces that brought us here. Look at you two being all philosophical about your trauma, Rachel said. It's disgusting. I love it. Emma crawled over and pulled herself up using Mateo's leg. Grass stuck to her hands and face. He scooped her up, and she immediately grabbed his nose. Dada, she said, which was new enough that it still made him tear up a little. That's right, baby girl. I'm Dada. He looked at Adrienne, and that's Mama. And this is our family, our weird, cobbled-together, absolutely perfect family. Adrienne looked at them, her husband, her daughter, her best friend, and felt that rare combination of contentment and joy that only comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The rain finally started, light drops that turned into a steady drizzle. They gathered up Emma and the wine and the blanket, laughing as they ran for the house. Inside, safe and dry, Adrienne looked out at the rain that had once represented the worst day of her life and now just represented weather. Just water falling from the sky. Nothing more, nothing less. She'd survived the storm. built something beautiful from the wreckage. And every day she chose to keep building. That was enough. That was everything.